Don't we all love summer vacation, relaxing, laying out by the pool, barbecues, hitting the beach, doing, well, nothing? Well, how about a summer vacation from your house payments? With SaveWithConrad.com, you can do just that. Reduce your monthly payments by making the equity you built up in your home work for you. You can roll together those high interest rate credit cards into one lower monthly payment and perhaps access some of that newfound equity to turn your house into your dream home with no money out of pocket. And how about this? You get to skip your next 2 house payments. That's right. You won't have to make your June or your July house payment. You're done until August 1st. Go right now to SaveWithConrad.com. Let my team run the numbers for you for free. There's no obligation, and if we can't help you save some cash, we won't waste your time. And did I mention we're offering a 3-year guarantee right now? That's right. That means if at any point interest rates improve over the next 3 years, you get a free refi. That's right. No new lender fees from us. So you get to save money now without wasting money later when the rates improve on a whole second set of closing costs. Why not go to SaveWithConrad.com and get a guarantee? Save money now and save money later with your friend in the mortgage business. That's me, Conrad Thompson at SaveWithConrad.com. Shoot me an email at Conrad@SaveWithConrad.com. Give us a call at 888-425-0105. Or get yourself a quick quote, even talk to a live person right now at SaveWithConrad.com. NMLS number 2129, equal housing lender. Let's take a summer vacation from house payments at SaveWithConrad.com. Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to My World. And of course, we couldn't do it without the Hall of Famer, the greatest professional wrestler of all time, your friend and mine, Double J, Jeff Jarrett. Jeff, how are you, man?
Oh, we're off and rocking on My World recording day. Man, had a good weekend, Conrad. The first of the, not my kids, but my nephews. So that generation went to a wedding up in Kentucky. So got to see family and friends and see some folks I hadn't seen in a while. Watched some basketball, watched some baseball this weekend. Mother-in-law birthday dinner. Most importantly, though, took codes out on Old Hickory Lake tubing for the first throwdown of the year, and I'm again undefeated. But no, good weekend, Conrad. The wrestling world continues to evolve. Gaming, we're going to be making some announcements about Acclaim, and we are in the middle of baseball season, and lots of moves going on there, off field as well as on. But anyway, life's good, life's busy. Got a big week AEW-wise. We'll get to that in a little bit. Headed out to Seattle. It's a long way from Nashville, but all good, man. Conrad, how are the mayflies down in Lake Gunnersville these days? I hear there are plenty of them.
They're piling up, man. It is a graveyard all on all my porches and patios. I described this to you last year, and you sort of poked fun and said that I was a wuss and it shouldn't impede my enjoyment, and you know, just get over it. It's just living on the lake. You sound like Karen. These are all the things you said. And so then the other night I was like, you know what? I don't think he gets it. So I sent you video footage of dusk at my house. More, less? What do you think?
You have to see it, folks. My World listeners, you know, if you're from the South, you may or may not get it, but it's hard to put into words, Conrad. So do you want a public apology today? I'll give it to you because I thought you may have some here and there, but folks, if you haven't lived in the South and kind of live close to water and mayflies, I think it's a 3-week or 4-week window. It's not real long. You can Google it and find out what they're doing when they're actually hanging on walls. But Conrad's beautiful view every night is now, it's literally a screen of mayflies flying everywhere, and they don't bite. They're just nuisance. But they're dead everywhere, aren't they, Conrad? Now, I bet they really are dying off quickly, and all the dead bodies are hanging out. Is that accurate?
Well, I mean, it's not dead body. There are tons of carcasses for sure, but I've still got a lot of live ones. As you know, they only live a day or two. They're here for one reason and one reason only, and that's to reproduce.
They are our BlueChew animals or insects. BlueChew, they love them some BlueChew.
Just walking around with mayfly hard-ons.
Nothing to do with the white paint, brand new white paint on your house. It has everything to do with a BlueChew supplement out in the back. They're coming and getting the BlueChew and doing their thing.
Wow. Wow. Okay. I don't know. I hope they've consulted with a licensed medical professional. Hey, we're going to talk about all of our news and notes and what's going on in professional wrestling, but today we're going to do it a little differently. We're going to do it at the end of the show. I want to jump right into our topic today, Slammiversary 2010.
You're flipping the script on me.
We are, yes, sir. And we're going to start with something that is less than awesome news, but it was what you were having to deal with 15 years ago, where Scott Hall found himself arrested on some disorderly intoxication charges and resisting arrest. This all happened on the evening of May 13th. I guess technically it's May 14th. It's about 1:43 in the morning at a bar in Florida, in Scott Hall's hometown down there. The Orlando Sentinel is going to do a story on this. They're going to run his mugshot. It looks like he is not having the best day. And I guess the police report says that when the deputy arrived on the scene, one of the bartenders was telling Scott Hall to leave. Scott was refusing. He's upset. He's yelling. He's cursing. And I guess the police sort of step in. And the report says Scott refused directive and instead thrust out his chest, walking closer to me, saying, "I ain't going down for that. This is shit. You know it's shit." Listen, we know that Scott battled his demons with alcohol, and you've been open and honest and transparent about your walk with recovery as well. And I know you weren't quite there yet in 2010, but when you read the notes and you read what Scott was going through 15 years ago, man, your heart goes out to him, because you know this is not necessarily that guy at his best, and you had seen him at his best. So when this news is something you got to deal with as part of the ownership group here in 2010, is your mind even wrapped around, I know you see it differently now. How did you see it back then, Jeff?
That's a good, you know what, Conrad? That's why you're the podfather. Good question to frame it that way, because as you stated, Slammiversary 2010. So we're in the summer of 2010. And this is when Hogan and Bischoff, they came in essentially 6 months prior to, at the beginning of 2010, end of 2009, beginning of 2010. And you said it. I was a part of the ownership group, but I had nothing to do with creative or talent. But what you just said was, how did I see? And it's my friend Scott, that, we had run up down the roads together. He had taught me an awful lot. We were buddies. He had come in and out of TNA periodically up till this point. But when I heard this news, and, he just lived an hour from the studios. He lived close. And so it was a quote unquote good gig. And I knew in Scott's heart, we certainly weren't offering it, but his heart was not anywhere close to the business. In my opinion, hadn't been for some time. But when he would get around it, of course he liked it. But he was, I'll say, his personal situation, life had, in a lot of ways, I don't say beat him up, or he had allowed life to beat him up. And I think that's because I had no context, no frame of the disease of alcoholism, that Scott was battling a disease. I didn't view it that way. I viewed it as, what can we do to motivate Scott? Because a motivated Scott, or a motivated individual, if you're running toward a target or running, and that's how I looked at it, Conrad, we need to get, what will he engage in? What will spark a fire? Because money wasn't going to, certainly at TNA, we didn't have enough money to motivate him, so to speak. But how do we get him engaged? Because he was such a good teacher and had a great mind for the business and genuinely loved it. But at this time, not offering a lot of dates, and I'm being his buddy, but have zero, I don't say power, but that's the only word I can come up with. It was, his boss was Dixie Carter and Hulk Hogan. And so I'm not sure that he viewed that as any kind of strong leadership. And I'm not poking on either one of them. I'm just saying where Scott had been and his entire career. Scott didn't have a lot to live for, was how I looked at it. In that I was hoping that whatever it may be, his just, his wife's situation, his family situation. It was tough. And so I felt bad for the guy and really didn't have any solutions for him. Of course, this is way before I understood recovery and the disease of addiction and the battle that he was up against. But man, it goes without saying, Scott was in he was in the deep, dark era of his disease.
It's written in the Observer, people backstage at the TNA Sacrifice pay-per-view could see the handcuff marks on both wrists, and he told people the story about him being arrested a few days earlier. It clearly made no difference to the company since they kept tag titles on him. If this was WWE, honestly, he would have been fired for the arrest. At least it would have gotten out to the public. I think if a WWE wrestler were arrested on these charges and he was not a top guy and had a prior track record for drinking or recreational drugs, he'd be gone even if it didn't get out. Nobody seemed to know what Hall's future was or if it was even in TNA. The story didn't break until after the television tapings were over. Hall is under a nightly per appearance deal as opposed to a regular contract. It could be a situation similar to Waltman where the company would just simply stop booking him. Was there a push from anybody else inside the organization to say that, hey, we need to take some other corrective action? Or were you guys united in your approach for Scott here?
You know, that's something that, as you know, we talk about TNA often here on the podcast. It's a big part of my history. But during this time frame, especially Dixie, I refer to it as, you know, pulled her power play. I opened the door for her, no doubt. But at this time, Conrad, this is when, you know, me and Bob and his folks out in Dallas, and I was live events and international, and that was my focus. And Dixie kept me completely out of any of that kind of discussion on what we are or aren't going to do. They didn't want my opinion, didn't come to it. It was really at this time, Hulk and Dixie, and I know Eric was, I'm sure, was around, but this was I'll call it the honeymoon part of the relationship. And so, you know, Kevin, I know Kevin weighed in on it, and Kevin always had the mindset, how do we help him? Like a best friend would do. How do we help the guy?
It's sad because we know that ultimately, you know, Scott is going to be battling this for quite a while. And I know that your view on it then is different than your view now. I just wish that I don't know.
Yeah, no consequence. I'm sorry to cut you off. What were you?
I'm just saying I wish that Scott's story had a happier end. That's all.
Yeah, at the end of the day, man, that's where the grace of God comes in. Either an individual wants to get sober or they don't, and it's pretty clear. It's pretty clear that, you know, the disease of addiction and alcoholism got him. And there are some folks, you know, they call them high bottoms, that have small consequences. But, you know, and then there's others. I know several folks that, you know, whether it's jail, institutions, arrest, losing jobs, losing family, losing all kinds of things, that still isn't enough. And you just kind of think, Conrad, to bring it into this situation on how management deals with it. And, you know, he wasn't on any long-term contract. You know, you hear his version of the story, and he came and said that, and look, the way I view things now, but, you know, we're talking about consequences, Conrad. And, you know, as we get into this story, I don't think his work life really had any consequences right here. Scott was unfortunately running his ship, and we know where it ended up. And that's kind of the sad, tragic part of all of it. So many people were pulling for him, and he just wasn't ready to receive the help.
Let's talk about Vince Russo. It's in the Observer here that his idea is if he leaves the writing team, he wants to be the executive producer of the television program here. I guess he's saying he'd like to be like the Kevin Dunn of TNA. Was that ever seriously considered?
I mean, I kind of remember different. Look, at this time, and I would have to get my pencil out to really think through this, but you had Dixie, and you had Hulk, and you had Vince. I'm not sure where Bruce was at on this. And then you had Eric, you had quite a few folks, and I'm thinking to myself that I never, yeah, I did. I'm sure I heard Vince or the story that Russo wanted to kind of get into an executive producer role, and I'm thinking, what the heck do you think Dixie Carter wants to be? It's not going to work. You may get a title like that, whether it's Hulk or Eric or whoever. Dixie wanted to be boss, and that's exactly what happened right here.
I also want to spend just a minute here and ask you about a report here from the Observer that says starting on the May 20th TV show, you guys were paying models to get dressed up and sit in the front row. And Dave says the problem is when you see a crowd and there are 5 people completely overdressed and everyone else looks exactly like the TNA audience always looks, and only screams out that we hired models to sit in the front row. I understand we're trying to always position ourselves for the best optics, but were you actually hiring models as best you recall? And who was an advocate for that? Is that a Russo call or somebody else?
That's a Dixie Carter. And that it kind of goes into, and look, oh man. And she's not the first and won't be the last, but that is something that, again, from a very early age, and kind of, I don't know if you've gotten much feedback, but I have gotten continuous feedback on we'll call it the TKO mentality, that, the TK master, if you will. Who are they actually making their decisions for? And they're making their decisions for Wall Street, if you will, or private equity, as opposed to the wrestling fan. And this is not the exact decision, but Dixie wanted the fans and the audience to be more like her and represent and look better on TV and this and that. I just chuckled. I specifically remember folks in the office, hey, what do you think about this? And I just go, so what you're really telling me is you're embarrassed of the people who are the most passionate about our product, because they're coming and getting there early and now we're in the summer in Orlando, 95 degrees, Conrad. They're getting there early, and they're getting there in the front row. I mean, in the front of the line to get in, and they want to be in the pit, and they want to be on the front row. So what we're really doing is we're replacing our most diehard fans. Now, I get it, aesthetics, where it's a TV show. I'm the biggest proponent that at the end of the day, whether it's a studio crowd, an arena crowd, if you're running a high school gym, the audience is that magic ingredients. But when you put models out in the audience, what you're really saying is, hey, I'm going to replace my best fans with folks that are paid to be there.
Speaking of paying to be there, they have a promo that runs for Kurt Angle here, and they're talking about, I guess there is a line in here that Dave took issue with. Here's what Dave wrote. They did a really cool Angle video, complete with the stupid line that he would rather perform before 2,000 to 3,000 fans chanting TNA than 12,000 fans who weren't making noise. At least now they've dropped the magic ring angle. This was the only time on Impact where you had the promotion telling its fans that it's a minor league promotion. What do you think about that? The idea that Angle in this VO, they would say that, oh, he'd rather perform in front of 2,000 to 3,000, active fans, hot fans, as opposed to 12,000 who aren't making noise. The implication there, what's implied is, hey, we're small, but we're vocal. I don't know. It does feel minor league. Are you sort of scratching your head when you see things like that, or do you get what they're going for? Is it a miss? How does this strike you?
But accept who you are. I get that, but okay, I guess you could call that kind of feels minor league. I could also say, man, that feels just dumb as
it does.
Just like how, but look, I've made more mistakes than any promoter out there. No doubt, but just get in a room and think that through. That's one of the dumbest things, that it's like, do you really need to point it out that way? Reframe it, say it a different way. We love, but it's just completely missing the mark. But again, it's much like the bottles in the front row. I get it. I know what you're trying to accomplish, but the reality is that we have a studio in Orlando, Florida, and it's in the summer, and we're going to get some hot, sweaty fans that are going to come in. That's the reality. Now, do your best if you need to shoot around certain things. Okay. But trying to replace your audience and then trying to say, hey, we're small, but man, we like the loud folks. Okay. It's you're pointing out a negative, period, and not thinking it through.
Yeah, it's time for me to agree with that one. By the way, let me speak about another thing that you and I will definitely agree on.
We're off and running today, Connie. I'm chuckling internally because the format and not going to wrestling news and notes off top, and we're getting right into it. I kind of like it because you just bing, 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 bing. You're coming out hard hit. What you got?
You've been in a lot of locker rooms, haven't you?
Oh, I'd say so. I'd say so.
How many wrestlers in your day, you don't have to name any names, but how many wrestlers in your day could have earned the nickname Skid Mark?
Oh, Conrad. Enough.
It was a problem with guys not being able to take care of themselves, you think?
Well, I guess you could say maybe a lot of road miles.
I mean, do you want to name some names? I mean, who had shitty drawers? Do you want to tell us?
I will not tell on shitty drawers. I can't do that, Conrad.
Well, let me just tell you, there is a better, cleaner way, and you got to get with the program. I mean, if you could earn the nickname Skid Mark in your household, you need a Tushy. Tushy is the everyday luxury bidet that instantly transforms your bathroom habits and bottom health for life. There's a bidet for every biohacking personality type, like Cloud Plus, which automatically deodorizes the air when you sit down, and Aura, which automatically opens the seat when you enter the bathroom. That's the one I've got. And when Megan and I went on vacation, she walked to the toilet in the bathroom and waited for the toilet to open because ours does. Seriously, Tushy has changed our life. And Tushy's elevated bidet collection nurtures your bottom with instant warm water that never runs cold, a soothing heated seat, and UV sterilization for next level hygiene. By the way, I want to mention that all Tushy bidets easily attach to your existing toilet. You don't need any additional plumbing. So instead of wiping endlessly with toilet paper, making a mess, it's barbaric, it's stupid, it doesn't work. Tushy pristinely removes 99% of the bacteria while instantly protecting your natural skin barrier thanks to one natural ingredient, ta-da, fresh water. Installation only takes about 10 minutes to complete. Literally anyone can do it. And Tushy, it gives you these 2-in-1 benefits. You're going to reduce irritation and prevent micro tears with soothing water instead of scratchy toilet paper or damaging wet wipes. And if you're on a septic tank, as Cassio says, you must be on septic. Dude, those wet wipes, they're going to sort of mess up your pipes. They're going to mess up your plumbing. You're begging for a big problem. Tushy is the solution. It's also easy to use. You sit, you cleanse, and it's even got a built-in air dryer. That's right. You can clean yourself in the bathroom now, hands-free. You don't need any dirt under your fingernails. Hey, was that ever dirt? People who have made the switch to Tushy use up to 80% less toilet paper. No clogged toilets, no more wasting money on something that does an inferior job cleaning your body. And every Hello Tushy bidet comes with a 30-day hassle-free return and a 12-month warranty. Keep your swampiest body parts fresh and cool. For a limited time, our listeners can get 10% off their first bidet order when you use the code MyWorld at checkout. That's 10% off your first bidet order at hellotushy.com and use the promo code MyWorld. Jeff, once upon a time, you were making pretty regular trips down to Huntsville, and your guest suite had one of these gimmicks in it, and it was there when our gimmick attorney Mike Dawkins came to town. He made fun of it, said it was stupid. Then he tried it, he bought it, he installed it in his own bathroom, and the kids that year for Christmas said, "Hey, Dad, we don't want an Xbox. We want a Tushy in our bedroom too." Like, I'm not making that up. Ask gimmick attorney Mike Dawkins next time you see him. But this really is the next level, is it not, Jeff?
You know what? And I love the guys at Tushy. Folks, it makes your whole bathroom experience taken to another level. And that hole is HOLE. Over 2 million butts. But no, it's can you imagine, Conrad, if back in the day, if back in the day we had our wrestling bag and a styrofoam cooler. Now it's gotten into a wrestling bag and a bag of food. Will there ever come a day when you have your wrestling bag of food, and your tushy all on the road with you? Maybe. It is it makes your whole experience completely different, a completely different deal.
Go grab it right now. You'll be glad you did. HelloTushy.com. Use that promo code MyWorld at checkout. You'll get 10% off. Your butt will thank you.
2 million.
By the way, serious business. Listen, it's almost exclusively guys who listen to this. And every now and again, maybe it's Father's Day, maybe it's your birthday, maybe it's an anniversary. Every now and again, your wife might want to do something special for you. You know what I'm talking about. Well, I don't know what makes them want to do that, but I know what makes them not want to. And using a tushy is going to guarantee that there's no roadblocks in the way.
The clean runway.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Hey, let's talk a little bit about the pay discrepancy. This is coming up here in the torch. There's been more grumbling than usual amongst the knockouts in TNA between the pay discrepancy between themselves and the men. There was even some talk early last week that all the women are going to get together and demand a raise from management. However, the 3-day tapings in Orlando concluded without any type of confrontation. But there were a lot of backstage complaints about TNA hiring 3 wrestlers out of Team 3D training school. The feeling in the locker room is that Team 3D students Rob Terry and Jesse Neal are not ready for prime time and should still be in training. Meanwhile, several people have balked at the decision to hire knockout Betsy Ruth. Some in management see her as a potential replacement for Awesome Kong and the knockouts division. Like Terry and Neal, she's considered very green, and the feeling is yada, yada, yada. Here's the deal, though. Ruth is making $250 per appearance. That's what's guessed here. And it's written here, hey, you could have retained Awesome Kong if you just would have bumped her up that same $250. This feels like a constant discussion here, Jeff, where guys are not happy with their payoffs. I guess that's the story as old as the day is long. But we've also heard that the knockouts are pretty consistently some of the highest rated segments. Was this an uphill battle? Why did the pay discrepancy exist? Like, if we know that they're solid on ratings, why wouldn't we pay them more? And how is this accurate that you think you could have saved Awesome Kong if you would have bumped her a fairly nominal amount? But meanwhile, we have that in the budget to add 3D training kids. I get that this is sour grapes from whoever's reporting this to Wade, but it's not the first time you heard it. What was true, and how did you deal with it, Jeff?
Again, I'm going to go into me being there, but not making any. I didn't have zero authority over talent creative. But, and we have fun on here, and at times I'll point out certain things about Hogan or Dixie or whatever you may be. But at the end of the day, getting right down on the reel here, if there's one phrase to kind of describe Hogan's, maybe not entire term, because that's giving him a little bit of a hall pass, but I'm just going to say the first 6 months, his lack of awareness was astounding. It blew me away on how little he understood the TNA world. And I get that Dixie literally wanted to change anything that had to do with Jeff Jarrett, staff. They got rid of the 6-sided ring, one of the first things they did. And in spite of the people booing it and booing Hogan and regurgitating, and they still stuck to their horses, but over and over and over and over and over. But kind of stuff like this, that you back all the way up. What is the first thing that the talent or the homegrown folks or the crew that was in place from Kurt Angle, 3D on down, all of them, when Hogan arrived on the scene, the first thing that came to everybody's mind was, well, he ain't coming cheap. So they're spending all that. And look, I get all sides of it, but at the end of the day, little stuff like this, let me rephrase that. The stuff that they appeared, and they obviously thought, oh, that doesn't matter. It mattered a lot. And stuff like this, there was issues across the board, and we're going to get into it. Roxy and ODB and all kinds of things. And so the context of kind of dismissing things, specifically guys' paydays, it just was a powder keg, because it was within a month that Hogan arrived, the missteps were all over the place, and they didn't address any of them. They're complete. Hogan's, in my opinion, his complete lack of awareness of who the TNA fan base was, and probably equally as important, who the TNA roster was and who they were. He didn't take the time to get to know anybody. And that, to me, started putting nails in his coffin from the day he walked in, unfortunately. Because, man, I was all for he will be a great ambassador for us, but it never materialized.
I can't believe this was a real sentence. This is from The Torch. This is 2010. Wrestlers are sounding off about the company using Okada. He's said to be not as talented or popular in the locker room as Kiyoshi, who isn't getting much of a push.
Yep. I mean,
Okada, of course, is going to be on a collision course. We're just a couple of weeks away from a rematch of one of the greatest trilogies in wrestling history. I'm talking about Okada and Kenny Omega. They're going to hook it up on Saturday, July 12th at AEW's first stadium show here in America. Tickets are on sale now at AEWTIX.com. Globe Life Field is going to be one hell of a venue. I was fortunate enough to be in it in November and couldn't believe just the structure, and could only imagine what it's going to look like. And we know, I mean, he's going to go on to become one of the most prolific champions in the history of New Japan, but that's after his TNA tenure. But to read Wade Keller here say, wrestlers are sounding off about the company using Okada. So that means Wade is not reporting his opinion. He's saying what the guys in the locker room were saying. Quote, he said to not be nearly as talented or popular in the locker room as Kiyoshi. I know that TNA, the quote unquote office, has taken heat for their use of Okada before, and people have sort of LOL TNA'd it. But this report from The Torch is saying that the boys. So I guess my question is, was it a language barrier that kept Okada from being embraced? Like, you never hear anybody say an unkind word about Okada here. Why wasn't it a better fit in 2010? Was it just timing or something else, Jeff?
I think, we can come up with 1,000 different rationalizations is kind of the word that comes to my mind. I don't want to say excuses, but all kinds of ideas and concepts. But at the end of the day, Okada, a young boy, I'll say that with all, because I have been around and seen it, worked with a lot of them. Culturally, a young upstart in Japan will get the opportunity to come to America 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. I mean, when I think back over time, Onita came to this territory right here, witnessed the concession stand brawl. And if you know anything about Onita's career, the genesis came out of Tupelo, Mississippi. You can say what you want. That is the absolute truth. Their Tarzan Goto came in here. So the young boy, that's what they refer to it as, coming to America. That's nothing new. And they come here raw, eager to learn. And it's a part of almost a rites to passage, Conrad. Maybe that's a better way to say it. So Okada was good, but when he went back to Japan and they started building and molding and building who he is today, I'm not going to say we're not talking about the same talent, but that's just was kind of life. So I know Russo's taking a lot of slack. I know TNA's talking a lot of slack. We can look at Generation B, now gone on to be a legendary tag team known as the Young Bucks. It's just kind of the nature of the business. And a lot of folks, when I appeared as Double J in 1993, they're like, where's this guy been? The fact of the matter is I'd been toiling in a territory for 7 years. So it's just a part of the maturity of a talent. But it's funny, Conrad, that you hear the narrative out there is TNA botched Okada, but you're hearing it right here. There obviously was a group of the guys that thought, what the hell are we doing with Okada? This Kiyoshi's a hell of a lot better. It's just talent being talent. And probably to this specific comment, it is the journalist. I don't always like to refer to them as dirt sheets, but the journalists being journalists, they're writing what they hear. And in this line of work, they don't always have to really, it's opinion as opposed to news.
I do want to ask you, when we're talking about, all the moving and shaking that's happening in 2010 here, one of the things that I want to discuss is the way the crowd is reacting and responding to the show, specifically the dynamics of what's happening in the park. As a reminder, TNA is recorded on a soundstage in Orlando, inside Universal. And when we have a live Monday night show, they're going to start the crowd at like 8 or 9 o'clock. So at that point, the park is closed and the people who are in the building are wrestling fans and they've got hot crowds. But if they're starting a show at 5 o'clock, well, now a lot of wrestling fans maybe haven't had a chance to get off work and get down to the building because, again, we're in Orlando. So you've got to travel there. So if you get off for your regular job at 5 o'clock and now the show starts at 5, I mean, you're not going to make it in time. And so it lends itself to it being more park users. How big of a frustration was the studio at times when it came to making sure the crowd was consistent with what you wanted to air on television, Jeff?
So I want to make sure, because my thought was going in one direction, but I want to, at the end of the day, Conrad, it was, and I definitely made some folks unhappy kind of during this summer because, I mean, it was no secret. There were some reactions in the studio that were not favorable, and I'm trying to paint a broad picture, but I mean, from the time Hogan said, get rid of the 6-sided ring, but not only that, he turned himself heel and didn't realize that, but they were spitting in the face of, the models. It was decision after decision after decision, and the people weren't as engaged in the product because they began to see the Nasty Boys in Orlando Jordan and a new crop here and a new crop there. And just, less than 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months, it was different, it was a different product almost. And so they started blaming everything but the product, but what was going on. And I said that to Dixie one time. I said, Dixie, do you have any context? Could it be they don't like our show? Oh, no. And excuse after excuse after excuse. No. And just what you wrote here. Oh, maybe we're starting too early. Maybe we ought to move it back, or maybe they rationalize, justify, and minimize everything about the show except looking internally and saying, hey, maybe we suck writing this show. Maybe the decisions we're making are wrong. Maybe what we are doing is not the solution that we need to be giving the people, because it was at times, that's Universal Studios flat. I'll just say that's the easiest thing. They just weren't responding. And I just like, this is unbelievable how quickly Dixie is tearing the product down. Those are the thoughts that went through my mind in 2010.
Let's talk about Hulk Hogan. He's going to make the news because he's going to have some bone spurs removed from his lower back. He's been hurting, I guess, since the Australian tour. He's able to leave the hospital the same day as the surgery, which took like 4 before he's going to be back on TV. But Meltzer would say Right now, the feeling in TNA is that Hogan and Bischoff are not leaving anytime soon. Bischoff's producing the new reaction TV show that begins in a few weeks, so it's a lock. He's not going. He needs a steady paycheck because his undisclosed out of court settlement to John Graziano for millions has, based on what he said, left him owing more money than he's worth. So we all know that Hulkster has had a ridiculous number of back operations, especially here in TNA. He's going to have several. He even has something done at the Laser Spine Institute that he winds up suing over. Later gets his own more conventional surgery that does reduce his pain. How bad was the Hulkster's back here in TNA, as best you can recall?
Well, and that's where you had to feel bad for the guy. If you've ever been in back pain, and I have, in my early career, it's excruciating, and you could kind of read it. Some days at Orlando, I guess you could say, just he would put on the best face he possibly could, but he probably was sitting there nauseated in that pain. It was rough because the way the way he would walk and not always be able to take a full stride, he was in pain. It sucked. I mean, and at one time I think he had like a device that that he could hit to like muscle stem, but also help with pain. It had something implanted in his spine. I may be completely off on that, but I knew that he was having ongoing issues that just over and over and over. And he knew it was, drop the leg every night, brother. but that kind of did his lower back in.
Let's talk about Mickie James here. It's written in the Observer that TNA is ready to bring her in as soon as her 90-day non-compete ends, which would be late July. Meltzer would say it would be good for her as well, as it at least keeps her on television in front of wrestling fans while she tries to market herself as a country singer. Plus, there are those in TNA who like the idea of having their talent appear in other arenas, with the idea that they have a promotion and they can get new fans from different genres, like Bobby Lashley and MMA. We know that Mickie is going to wind up being a pretty valuable member of the roster. This is interesting because, as best I recall, she was on the very first TNA show and then goes and has some success with WWE, and now she's coming back. And by the way, she's going to be with you and I on Friday, July 11th and Saturday, July 12th at StarCast. Bracelets are on sale now. Go grab yourself one at starrcast.com. I'm fired up about this. Grab those gold bracelets, grab those platinum bracelets. We've got a whole slate of events that we are excited to bring to you, and you don't want to miss on any of those. So grab a bracelet. This year, Jeff, we're doing something we've never done before.
What you got?
It's going to be an opportunity for some free meet and greets, which doesn't normally happen, but you're going to be able to see some panel discussions that you won't see anywhere else. Usually we stream these. We're not streaming these. And we just recently revealed on with JBL on Something to Wrestle that we've got a Texas-sized panel that I'm excited to brag about. We're going to have Kevin Von Erich, Dory Funk Jr., Stan Hansen, and John Layfield all on stage at the same time. It's as Texas gets. What a unique photo op. Realistically, it'll never happen again. It's the first time it's ever happened, and you don't want to miss it. Starcast.com is where you can grab your bracelets. Jeff's going to be there. Mickie James is going to be there. The who's who of professional wrestling is going to be there. But tell me about Mickie James. Were you excited to see her coming back into the fold?
Yeah, Alexis Lurie was her name, with Julio De Niro and Punk and that whole crew. And, and I've said this multiple times on the pod, that, a young Mickie James, or just starting, you got to be careful of that with ladies. But no, she was so hungry and wanted to, she was all in. I mean, she took crazy kind of bumps and she was eager to learn and all that. And so when she continued to grow and build her career and got to run at WWE, I was really happy for her. And when she was getting the opportunity to come back and pursue a music career, what better place, especially in the country music genre, and with, all kinds of connections. Dixie comes from the PR world in country music, so she had connections. There were a lot of connections to be made. And so with our schedule, I really thought, all right, this is a real good fit for all parties involved. And so it was a big acquisition, in my opinion, in TNA history.
It's super cool to think about her history, really being a day one TNA gal and now getting a chance to come back. Come meet her at Starcast, July 11th and 12th. Awesome Kong is going to be attempting to trademark Awesome Kong so she can use it on the independents. She's been using Amazing Kong until the issue was settled. How big of an issue was that? I know through the years, WWE, man, they trademarked everybody's name. What was the TNA approach when it came to trademarking talents' names?
The first thing that all that kind of really bubbled up to the Dallas office, again, they were with us, 6 months in, 4 months into the project. And so when we first did the Marvel action figures, and their lawyers spoke with our lawyers and got into that. From that point forward, and again, our attorneys obviously looked at how WWE did business and why they did it and their rationale and thought process. Well, that was pretty much, for the most part, the mandate that was handed down from majority ownership. And so you had to kind of toe that line, and always tried to say, hey, let's make the best business sense. Not always. And even Marvel, and look, as the years went on and I got into that litigation, 12, whatever years later, with Anthem, that one piece of paper, that document that was signed way back when, was in kind of the history of it. And they, Marvel wanted the rights for Jeff Jarrett. It's my God-given name. They can't take it from me, but they had the rights to it. So that IP law can get tricky. It can be burdensome. You can legalize yourself, I think, from a wrestling industry. But I've always been able to see both sides of it. But I think Amazing Kong was what she walked in the door with, and that's why she went back to it. And I can remember creatively when we were sitting around the table, and I'm like, hey guys, do y'all like Amazing? And we know that we kind of need to, from a mandate, go another way. I think she's more of an awesome talent. And it was just like, okay, that quick, make a decision. So I still say it's a case-by-case basis. I don't think there really is a set rule, but from a promotion, really what you are is an IP holding company in a lot of ways. And so there is value there, but as every day goes by, you can kind of look at the Taylor Swift buying her rights back. It's an ever-changing roller coaster carousel of ebb and flow, and it's always going to change on what the right decision is going to be.
Well, let me just tell you, the right decision is for you to listen up. Guys, it's time to enter the room dick first. BlueChew isn't just a tablet. It's a cheat code for your crotch. Stronger, harder, longer lasting. Like someone gave your downstairs a pep talk at a gym membership, BlueChew is the original brand offering chewable tablets for better sex. And I got to tell you, I tried BlueChew, and now my hog has a zip code and voting rights. Guys, this isn't just about performance. This is about legacy, or third legacy. Give her group chat something to talk about. When you lay it down, they're talking about how it gets up. Nothing makes you more of a legend than a little BlueChew. Discover your options at BlueChew.com, and we've got a special deal for our listeners. As always, get your first month of BlueChew free. Just use the promo code MyWorld to check out and pay $5 for shipping. That's it. BlueChew's mission is to upgrade humanity one thrust at a time. Join them. Head to BlueChew.com for details and safety information. And big thanks to BlueChew for sponsoring today's podcast. Let's talk a little bit about Frank Dickerson, Meltzer would write, who was at one time in charge of TNA business. He was one of Bob Carter's top guys in Panda and was moved to TNA to run the business, but that didn't last long. Had this business plan back in 2005, and they were starting on Spike. He projected that the company would be profitable in 2008 or 2009, which is pretty close to what happened before the recent big contracts that didn't add much to the revenue base. He was adamant about not going to Monday. Dixie and Jeff always had Monday as the goal. He wanted to keep costs down, which for the most part had been what the company did. He wanted to make Raven a top star. He ended up being let go for wanting too much influence on the booking side. He was also against using 90s guys. Scott D'Amore getting Samoa Joe over at first made him a favorite of Dickerson because he wanted to bring in indie talent as opposed to older gods and retreads. And D'Amore showed he knew how to get new talent over. So D'Amore stuck his neck out for Joe, and if Joe didn't get over, D'Amore's credibility would have been hurt. It didn't matter in the end since D'Amore is out of power. Joe had enough detractors to be watered down after his initial success. And one of the positives for some of the old guys is that when TNA did its surveys recently, to no surprise, they found that a ton of wrestling fans didn't even know TNA existed. That's why they were always searching for publicity stunt ideas to get some sort of mainstream ink using the sports celebrities or reality show people. And with Hogan and Flair, they aren't really looking in that direction since they're bigger names than anyone they're going to get from the outside world. And one of the other big things in their favor is that there's a lot of media talk shows, particularly the sports talk shows, that would never touch AJ Styles or Alex Shelley, but the older hosts would know Kevin Nash and Mick Foley. So that's the value of having a few of those names, but you really only need 3 of them because they don't get enough sports media to even need more than that. What do you make of this random write-up in support of Frank Dickerson, and how much of this is true and how much of this is selling newsletters?
Mercy. I like Frank a lot, and he was on the Panda board, and that carried a lot of weight. Frank wanted to dive in and understand the business on as many levels as possible. He understood that the talent and the creative component of it were a little out of his I don't say wheelhouse. He knew that it was a complex. He would always say, Jeff, that's complex. And he said, I understand that's a nuanced part of this industry that only experience. And he would word it. He was a smart guy, really smart. Me and him stayed in contact for years. I hope Frank's doing well. Like his wife, love his wife, kids, spent the night at his house. But when I read this in research and then followed up, now Scott and Frank were buddies. And so I'll just leave that there for you, Conrad. But him having a business plan and the timeline of profitability, and there's quite a few holes when you kind of start, when you really pull the layers of the onion back. If he's predicting we were profitable in 2005 when we were on Fox Sports before Spike opportunity presented itself, damn, he's a damn mind reader. But there was quite a few holes in that, and the Samoa Joe story. Anyway, sold a lot of newsletters, but I love Frank. He really, his heart was in the right place and understood it. But my God, what a difficult position he was put in, or anybody was put in, that you had to be the liaison between Nashville and Dallas.
I want to ask you about Ross Foreman. It's written here that he's in the public relations department for TNA, and he's going to be let go. And I guess they kind of kept it quiet for a few weeks before everybody finds out. It's said that this was due to budget cutbacks, but the interesting thing is there's a conspiracy theory that perhaps the uproar in the office was some frustration launched his way. In real life, Ross was a guy who had a legit sports background. So from what I understand, he helped land the TNA trading cards deal with TriStar, and he had to write all the verbiage on all the cards and things like that. And of course, all of that had to be approved by the quote unquote office at TNA. But by the time the cards are actually printed and released, the cards are talking about TNA taking over on Monday nights. But at this point, we've already canceled the Monday night initiative and the show is on Thursdays. So this is the risk you run when you're trying to promote, but there's a lag time between the idea and production and distribution. So when Ross wrote all of this, hey, it is all hands on deck, we're promoting Monday. By the time the cards actually print and ship, TNA had pivoted. And I guess the people in the office were upset with Ross. I would argue Ross did nothing wrong. And I know these days Ross is still with TNA. So I'm glad it all came back together. What do you remember about Ross being let go? Was it strictly due to budget cuts? Was there something else? And did he take heat for this trading card snafu that, in fairness, not his fault?
Not at all. And you know what? I wish I had better recollection, because if you would have asked me before I dove into research, Ross, because I just saw he in the last 3, 4, 5 months, he got a promotion. But when you kind of look at TNA, had their birthday June 19th, 23 years of age. But Conrad, you know, Bob Ryder, Jeff Jarrett, Jerry Jarrett, Jeremy Borash, James Storm. I mean, all the folks that were AJ, Keith Mitchell, and all of his TV crew, they're gone. The studio, they're all gone. You know, folks that have been here going back. I think Ross is right up there at the top for longevity. I'd completely forgotten that they did let him go. And I can remember hearing it going, what? Like, Ross was not expensive. What the hell could he have possibly done wrong? And I had forgotten this whole trading card story when what you just said. Ross is the one who brought the deal to us. TriStar, our cards, you may know better than me, but my understanding, I got some on this wall and I got some on that wall, but they were very well received. But I'm thinking, I remember letting him go over cards. What the hell he's the one who brought the deal to the table. But yeah, that is kind of another microcosm. Hey, I'm not going to blame the fact that we were on Monday nights and got off Monday nights. I'm not going to blame that on ourselves. We got to blame that on Ross. It is so typical TNA 2010.
Let's talk about something else that's happening here that I wish wasn't so typical. Jeff Hardy is going to be in the news again. He's in some trouble. He's going to be going to court. He's been arrested. And finally, we're going to be getting to court. Some of the charges have been dropped, but he might be facing like 6 months in jail. As a reminder, he was arrested on 9/11 the prior year. That's just 2 weeks after he finished up with WWE, and they found 262 prescription Vicodin pills, 180 prescription somas, and 555 milliliters rather of anabolic steroids, some powdered cocaine residue, and some drug paraphernalia. So it's a pretty tough deal, and it's making headlines for TNA as the narrative goes. And I don't know what's real and what's not, but the rumor and innuendo is a random fan, big fan of Jeff's, tried to send him all of this concealed in a coffee can. And I guess law enforcement discovers this before it ever makes its way to Jeff, and that's how the arrest comes down. But when you hear of fans sending a beloved babyface a coffee can full of drugs, it feels like a movie more than real life. Obviously, you know, Jeff's had his demons and up and downs through the years, but this is not the type of PR that any company trying to grow is going to want. How much blowback, if any, was there with the Carters and Panda about this? Or did you not know all the details about the alleged coffee can and all that at this time when it's all going down?
So the arrest was in 2009, though, correct? I think that I was trying to the piece through. I think
it's the prior September, 9/11 of the prior year.
Okay. If you remember, that is when Dixie pulled the power play. So I just remember hearing the reports and what went down, and I'm dealing with my issues. But, you know, the first reports that came out of this, it was, oh boy, this is bad. And then little by little, you go, okay, well, a fan and this and that and all this, it still doesn't matter. He's arrested. He's been charged with this. You know, it was a very, very, very situation. And his TNA relationship, I think, was way on the back burner for the first 90, 120 days. And then as time went on, again, I'm out of the talent creative. And I just knew when I would talk to Jeff that my lawyer, it's in the lawyer's hands. And he was very concerned about what the consequences were going to be. That was a really tough time. By the grace of God, my man is sober and up and running. And he, we talked about Scott earlier, but Jeff is doing his thing, and praise God that he is. But this was man, oh man, what a tough time it was for him and Beth and the whole family.
I'm thankful that his story is one that's going to have a happy ending. I mean, he's obviously made it through, and we're pulling for him, and I'm glad he's enjoying all the success he has. I mean, what a unique talent, what a big time superstar. Timing is everything. But if these substance issues hadn't reared their heads when they did, you got to assume that guy would have been in multiple WrestleMania main events, right?
There's only, I have said it in public and I've said it in private in creative rooms, when you have a room full of folks and you're talking creative, and it's easy, from a creative perspective. Oh man, you know what? I don't know about Jeff. I'm not sure he can carry this promo off. Well, I'm not sure about, all this kind of stuff. I always went back on Conrad. Name me one guy that has the charisma that connects with the audience. And if you want me to show merch numbers, great. If you want me to show social media numbers, I know we're early in that game. You can do that now. But his metrics always blew folks away. That charismatic enigma part, I lean into heavy. There's only one Jeff, and you are spot on. When he had that run in WWE, and I could remember talking to a merch buddy of mine when he was, I don't say at his peak, but in that area, over half the merch SKUs at the merchandise table at WWE shows when he was rocking and rolling, over half were Hardy products. Folks, that is amazing. That is Cena level and above. It just, yes. So multiple main events. The disease is patient and is undefeated if you face it one-on-one.
Let's talk about Hulk Hogan here for a minute. It's written in the Observer. Creative has been told to get Hogan on every television show, even if it's just for a moment. There's been the argument he should be on less and used as a special attraction, so his dates and appearances would mean more. Is the implication here, Jeff, as best you understand it, that this is a Spike TV initiative to get Hogan on all the shows, or is this a Dixie call?
So that's a Meltzer reporting, right?
Yep.
Okay. I think you just said, and I'm paraphrasing, creative has been told to put Hulk on every show. Well, Hulk Hogan had creative control, folks.
He put himself on every show.
I think it's a bunch of bullshit. The manipulation that guy did to Dixie Carter, and Dixie, look, she has to take full responsibility. She didn't know what she was signing up for, but the results speak for it all. Yes, he put himself on every show. It's a bunch of crap if you say anything different. He had creative control, and he would be on the shows when he wanted to be on the shows. End of story.
You said a bunch of bullshit. You never curse. You feel pretty fired up about that one.
But it goes to the whole thing that, when you think about Dave, and I don't want this to be about Dave and his reporting, but I'll just say wrestling journalism reporting. The fact that he said creative has been told to write him on every show. That whole line is a bunch of crap. I mean, Hulk had creative control. Hulk was there to make as much money as possible, just like when he worked for Jerry Jarrett or Vern Gagne or Vince McMahon or New Japan Pro Wrestling or whatever it may be. That is the end goal of a professional wrestler. Maybe not this generation, but in that modern, in that 80s, 90s, I don't know when it kind of got clouded, but that was the goal. And so he had gotten himself, rightly so, the biggest box office attraction this business had ever seen. And when they made the call and made the decision to come on board, and he wrote creative control in there, at the end of the day, and I told Bob this about a year and a half into it, I said, when the contract was signed, it was checkmate. You guys just didn't know. That's the reality. That is the absolute reality. And you look at the history, and how the hell did TNA go into that death spiral? Well, for starters, Hogan had creative control. For starters, Hogan wanted to run the wrestling business and had never run a promotion in his life. Let's take the show on the road. Let's move out of Orlando studios. Let's hire this guy. Let's hire that guy. It was a calamity of decisions that ran it in the ground.
Respectfully, Hulk was the greatest attraction at that point in the history of wrestling. Him and Stone Cold, maybe 1A, 1B, but he lacked the institutional knowledge of being the guy running the P&L. Right?
No, look, I think I came up.
Yeah.
I still believe today, Austin, Cena, whoever you want to put in that, Taker, what a crazy run he had too on top. But there's been nobody that, from Vern Gagne to Vince to New Japan Pro Wrestling to Hulkamania to the NWO to, we'll call it the NWO in WWE and Hogan and all that, just run after run after run after run after run. I don't think anybody can, and you know, statistically, there's nobody that has been in Hogan's league in longevity. I mean, I don't even think. I mean, Cena had a 16-year run. I'll say maybe more than that, but anyway, Hogan from the mid '80s till when? What year was Hogan Rock, Conrad?
2002.
Okay, so you're at least into 20-year on run top. I'm not, you know. So I mean, he is, as a talent, the biggest box office attraction this business. And I know if you want to get back into Lundus and Hackenschmidt and all that, but in the television era, Hogan is at the tip top. But that doesn't mean he can run a wrestling business, and he proved it beyond a shadow of a doubt that he didn't know what the hell he was doing.
We know what the hell we're doing, and that's why we use Cash App. You know, making money moves should be easy, and that's why we trust Cash App, because it's safe, it's fast, it's secure, and honestly, it's just a way more personalized way to send money than all the other apps out there. It's also easier, at least in my opinion. There's no extra hoops to jump through. There's no extra stress. All the tools are there to help you cash in. Speaking of cashing in, WWE recently had Cash App as a sponsor for their Money in the Bank pay-per-view. And here they've got a lot more commercials coming up in WWE broadcast. So we want you to cash in with Cash App, because sending money right now with Cash App actually feels safe. Easy for me to say. They're looking out for you. It's like you've got your own personal bodyguard for your cash. If they think you're going to be sending money to a potential scammer, they give you a heads up and make you think twice before you press the send button. You can also spice up your payments with custom text and stamps and backgrounds. Sending money to your friends shouldn't be boring. And if for some insane reason you don't already have Cash App, I want to tell you about this. When I said you can cash in with Cash App, I mean it. For a limited time only, new Cash App users can use our exclusive code and earn some additional cash. For real, there's no catch here. Just download Cash App and sign up. Use our exclusive referral code MyWorld in your profile, and then send $5 to a friend within 14 days, and you'll get $10 dropped right into your account. Terms apply. That's money. That's Cash App. I want to spend just a minute here, Jeff, and talk about an interview that Eric Bischoff had. It was on the Monday Night Mayhem radio show, and he was asked about pushing the older stars instead of the former TNA stars. This is something that he would get hit with quite a bit, about not using the TNA originals and leveraging the stars from the 90s. So here's exactly what Eric said 15 years ago. I have to say this, and this may piss off some people in TNA, but I hate the term homegrown talent. We're not selling vegetables here or freshly made pies. This is about creating awareness. Our survival, our ability to grow our audience and appeal to a broader audience isn't about appealing to the same people who've been watching this. And quite frankly, the audience hasn't grown all that significantly over the last 4, 5, or 6 years, or else you probably wouldn't even be talking to me right now. This is about growing and expanding the audience. You got to grow the brand, and you do that by bringing in people, whether they're movie stars, television stars, or anything else, who have a broader appeal because they've been out there in front of other people in a bigger, broader audience than perhaps the talent you already have on the show. That's not a knock at all on the talent that TNA currently has, but it does reflect the need that in order for TNA to grow, you have to bring in people that have a broader appeal worldwide. And of course, Meltzer would say that all makes sense on paper, even though it didn't end up happening that way. So listen, nothing against our buddy Eric. Obviously, you do need help from established stars. I mean, Terry Funk did that for ECW. And even when Vince McMahon went national, he made sure that he enlisted the help of guys like Mr. T and Cyndi Lauper, and to a lesser extent, Muhammad Ali and others. And we know when AEW first got going in their very first press conference, yes, we've got, the Kenny Omegas and the Young Bucks and the Cody Rhodes here, but we also debuted, hey, Chris Jericho's here. And when we were looking for a voice, we know that Excalibur has become maybe the voice of AEW, but Jim Ross was one of the first names that they were excited to announce because he was familiar and the audience was familiar with him. So those things do have value and have been proven out to be great strategies time and time again. But for some reason here, when Eric says this, people throw their hands up and throw their babies in the air and say, oh, he's wrong. It's not fair. It's not true. But this is the way he grew WCW with guys like Dennis Rodman and signing Hulk Hogan in the first place, and Karl Malone and Jay Leno. And I know some of us look at that stuff and think it's a little silly, but when was the last time there was a Tonight Show takeover? I mean, that had never really happened before. So Eric did have experience growing this way, but I know when he says, hey, if that was working, I wouldn't even be here. Man, that has to rub people the wrong way. Is it what he said or how he said it that upset people, do you think, Jeff?
Well, Eric was being classic Eric. And I say that with love and in this conversation, not just love, but respect. No, look, I would have never said, hey, let's use NWA TNA out of the gate if NWA wasn't a nationally known brand. It's so brand rub can happen from NWA type situation. Bob Carter, specifically on the Hulk Hogan, Bob early, and this is when I was still, I'll say completely in the doghouse. What do you think, Jeff? I said, getting Hogan is gigantic. Oh, you're for it? Oh, huge. I think he can be a great ambassador. But I said, ambassador being the key word. Day-to-day player, it ain't going to work. It's just not going to work. And I'll give you a few reasons why. He kind of heard me out for a few minutes. Eric saying that went into the going back to, look, at this time, Eric's boss was Hulk. So he had to sing the exact same song that Hulk was singing. And what was Hulk doing? I got to justify my salary, my payoff, my money that I'm being made. So I'm going to defer to my boss, Dixie Carter. And what Dixie's telling us is, hey, what we're doing ain't working. They either fail to give a shit or fail to do a little research or to really look into it. But at the end of the day, none of them really pulled up the hood and said, let me look at this brand. Did they like or dislike the six-sided ring? Did they like AJ Styles? Well, let me find out how the audience is really gone. Now, wait a minute. Eric being a TV guy, so you mean to tell me they came on sight unseen as a Saturday night product and they got their spike time slot. Okay, so it succeeded so quickly, the head of the network bumped them in pay and said, hey, I'm going to move you to Thursday night. Not prime time, but late prime. Okay, we succeeded there. Okay, we're going to take this 1 hour program that's been off prime. We're going to put it in prime time. Well, damn, we're really getting traction now, guys. So we're going to go from 1 to 2 hours. Okay, went from 1 to 2 hours. When we started, we were under 1 million. Oh, wait. Okay, so it grew and it grew and it grew. Okay, so you're averaging 1.5, 1.6, 1.7. I'd say that's pretty good growth. It just wasn't fast enough for Dixie Carter, and she convinced her father, Bob Carter, we got to make a change. Jeff doesn't know what in the hell he's doing. They bought it hook, line, and sinker. And here was Eric's comments of, if they grew fast enough, I wouldn't even be here. The people that knew. Unfortunately, for the brand, that was irrelevant, because at the end of the day, Dixie wanted Jeff out and her crew in, and that was what it was all about. I think Eric was justifying his boss, Hulk Hogan's validity of being in the company.
Let me ask you a little bit about the way the show is being formatted, because the observer would have an interesting note here about television. And I think this is something that we've never really talked about. There's been a change in the television show formatting. They've gone to longer segments and longer commercial breaks, essentially 8 breaks over 2 hours instead of 10. They ditched those deals where in a long commercial break, they do a 30-second deal in the middle of the break, which was a Spike directive. They were actually doing that on the Ultimate Fighter as well. The idea was to keep people from switching away during the breaks, but it really didn't actually change anything in execution. The new formatting is better because they can do a 6-minute television match without a commercial break. I'm curious, if you had a strong opinion on this one way or another. Do you like fewer breaks but longer breaks, or do you like more breaks but shorter? Is there a best practice, at least in your mind, when it comes to wrestling?
And this is, you may chuckle on this, Conrad. What my answer is going to be is, you know what I like absolutely the best? Mr. Silva, will you go 2-shot? You know what I like absolutely the best?
What?
Exactly what the ad sales team likes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, and I say that's exactly Russo, Bruce, Dixie, anybody in that creative sphere. We all had differing opinions and this and that. But folks, at the end of the day, I truly believe that the NFL gameplay, one of their top reasons it's so successful is the game is perfect for television, in that you can go to a commercial break and there's a natural change of possession or whatever it may be, but there's just a natural flow. Whereas, baseball is 9 innings, a little bit longer, but there are natural breaks. In basketball, you literally have to stop play and do a TV timeout. And so no matter how the run or the game or the ebb flow is going, TV dictates it. TV dictates commercials, the ad sales department, keeping viewers retained. And now we're in 2010, so we're getting into really show old school, the TiVo era, but the digital era, where the ad sales department retaining viewers. How are we going to play this game? Oh, we're going to put a little hybrid in there and show 30 seconds to try to. They were trying everything. You look at programming now, picture in picture is the norm. Back then, I mean, a crazy rarity. So it did. I remember there were quite a few folks that were happier because they said, okay, we have longer segments now. I think you just said 10 breaks to 8, but when you shorten the amount of breaks, but lengthen the break time, it gave match time more length. And that was, Conrad, to answer your question, I think there is value in that, a guy like Russo will say, oh no, just music and entrance and after the bell is all that matters. I hear you, but as far as getting people invested in stories within the match, the physical part, you need not a lot of time, but you need enough time to get into that emotional bite. We all know premium live events, pay-per-views, that's why you go away exhilarated, because you do have 15, 12, 18 minutes to really get in there. So when this change happened, Conrad, I think it was pretty universal. Okay, we like this because the segments can be longer.
I mean, I feel like you said what the ad team likes best. I'd be willing to bet they wanted more breaks, shorter breaks, because in the ad sales community, you would be able to charge what's called a premium first position. So the first commercial when you go to break is going to charge more. So in we'll call it radio land, you've got a stop set. So if the radio program, all your music goes to commercial, they're usually not going to play one song, one commercial, one song, one commercial. They'll play a few songs in a row, and then we'll have a batch of commercials together. However many is TBD. Could be 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, whatever. Depending on how successful the radio station is, that will vary. But they always charge more for that first spot. And so if you have 10 breaks as opposed to 8, well, you can get that premium 10 times as opposed to 8 times. So even if it is the same amount of time, you're going to have a commercial coming in a break or going into break and coming out of break. Those are going to carry a premium. And some television stations won't even sell you like a 15-second standalone. So they would sell you what's known in the industry as bookends. So you start a commercial break with a 15-second spot and you'll finish a commercial break with a 15-second spot. So it still took your same 30 seconds, but you as the ad buyer, man, you got premium real estate coming and going, as I would say. And when you talk about ad sales, obviously I've spent a bunch of money buying ads and I've sold ads here on the program, but even here on our program, the person who's first usually paid a little more. I mean, that's the way it works. So if you can get that 10 times as opposed to 8 times, I would rather have the 10. So when you're switching back to 8, it almost feels like it's in favor of wrestling in the program, not money.
So, but look, they didn't just like us and put their armor at us and go 10 days. Why do you think? I love that, dude. Folks, this is why you listen to my world, to listen to Conrad's business. That's why anyway, why do you think they did it? Just your gut. Why?
I think they felt like perhaps they were losing the audience. Maybe, I don't know, but did your shows back then historically start strong and then peter out as it went? Like ratings wise, would it go down or would it go up?
No, we came on, at a certain level. We always finished, I'll say always, that's a strong statement. But our goal was, I'll tell you the 3 highest rated quarter hours: the 1st, the 5th at the top of the hour, and the 8th. And we always wanted to format the show that for the first 20 minutes or so, you talk about what you're going to see at the end of this show. That was just kind of the baseline of it all. We always bottomed out so there's 4 quarter hours. We bottomed out in sec 3 and in sec 7. And a lot of times that's sec 7 because we tried to load, if you will, and we wanted to come on the air in that last quarter hour with no commercials. So sec 7 sometimes got double commercials, and that was a real. Now you go to that 10, I'd have to get really a format to look at it, but yeah, we for the most part, Conrad, we would come on, get going, but peak at the end or sec 5 and still have a strong seg 8 at the end of the show.
As a guy who was always trying to run a sharp P&L, one of my go-tos, Jeff, became buying the last spot right before a big program aired. The idea being, I convinced a lot of local stations here in North Alabama to sell me something that we eventually called adlets. Television stations would often have to, once an hour, just run some sort of notice like WHNT, Huntsville, Decatur, Muscle Shoals, whatever the fuck.
Yep.
So what I would say is, hey, sell me that. You don't have to audibly say it. You can just put it on the screen. So you can put that shit all over my commercial, but sell me that. And so that was like, people around here were like, wait, we have to do that legally and you're going to pay us for it? Yep, but not a lot because it's only 5 seconds and you're putting your shit on it and it's found money, blah, blah, blah. But I would even do what I was just telling you, like right before the Super Bowl here in our local markets, I'd be like, hey, I want a 15-second right before. So if they said, hey, the Super Bowl starts at 6, hey, I want to be in that 5:58 break. Because people are still going to be sitting around waiting on the thing to start. They're waiting on the game to kick off. So they're watching the pre-show and all that other stuff. So right before all that coverage starts, they're already in their seats. It's not like people are wandering around aimlessly like, we're not doing anything until exactly 7 o'clock on the nose. No, they're sitting down watching. Beautiful. So, but they're going to charge me a premium at 6 o'clock. But at 5:58, I get the old give me that. I'll take that.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I love that.
Hey, you know what? Sometimes it's all about just finding the perfect fit. And I want to talk just a minute with you about that, Jeff, because let's talk about jeans for a second. You have been on TV in jeans for years and years. I recently got a pair from the Perfect Jean, and I think these are basically like the unicorn of jeans. The Perfect Jean fits like a dream. It looks fantastic, and it's so comfortable. You're going to forget you're even wearing pants. In case you didn't know, this is an ad. The Perfect Jean told me to say this, but I wouldn't lie about how awesome the jeans are because they really do live up to the name. And if you are going to be outside this time of year, let me just go ahead and tell you the perfect jean is a little more comfortable in all this humidity. I'll just let you use your imagination. Picture this: 700,000 pairs of nuts have been rescued from bad jeans. That's 2 per dude. Who's the hero? The perfect jean. Say goodbye to those stiff cardboard denims and say hello to comfort. These are jeans that fit like they were custom made. They stretch like you wouldn't believe, and they look fantastic. The fabric is as safe as a baby's bottom, but no babies were involved, we promise. And they're durable enough to survive her pulling them down daily. Yeah, she's going to love the way you look in these jeans. The perfect jean has a seriously massive range of sizes, too. You got 6 fits, from skinny to thick. You can go from waist from 26 to 50, lengths from 26 to 38. And it doesn't matter if you're a short king, a thick daddy, or something in between. You can find the perfect fit for the body you're rocking. For a limited time, our listeners can get 15% off their first order plus free shipping at theperfectjean.nyc, or just Google the perfect jean and use our code Jarrett15. You'll get 15% off. I'm a big believer in this product. I want you to go try it. I'm telling you, when you just feel how comfortable, how soft, how stretchy, it's going to click for you. These are not your dad's jeans. I can't imagine. I've even said this before. I don't know how some of you guys, Jeff, wrestle in jeans, but these jeans move with you. I mean, you can do some of your fancy, Hendersonville Kung Fu in these. By the way, the perfect jean doesn't just stop there. They've revolutionized t-shirts too. The perfect tee is one I'm going to recommend. It has enough stretch to hide your beer belly. It also accentuates your arms and chest. It gives you a flawless look, but it's as soft as butter. It's not going to rink in the wash like all your other tees. It truly is the perfect tee. And the perfect jean, by the way, always has free shipping, free exchanges, and free returns. So you got the peace of mind of knowing that your order is completely risk-free. It's time to finally stop crushing your balls in uncomfortable jeans and go right now to theperfectjean.nyc, and our listeners can get 15% off your first order plus free shipping, free returns, and free exchanges when you use the code Jarrett15 at checkout. That's 15% off for new customers at theperfectjean.nyc with the promo code Jarrett15. Now, after you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Fuck your khakis and get the perfect jean.
The Last Outlaw endorsed. I had a photo shoot. Karen laid it out before I ran out the door. We had it here locally. Yep. The perfect tee and the perfect jean was the Last Outlaw's outfit. The only outfit I wore to the photo shoot. They're great. They truly are the most comfortable jeans I've ever put on.
I recommend them highly. And listen, let me just tell you, fat guy tested, fat guy approved, fat guy certified. Go check out the perfect jean. Be sure to use that promo code Jarrett15. Hey, let's talk a little bit about the pay-per-view. But before we do, I want to ask you about Bryan Danielson. This was the week when Bryan Danielson got fired by WWE. You may recall this is when Nexus did a takeover, and Bryan Danielson, just freestyling at ringside, choked Justin Roberts with his necktie. Now, in the scheme of things, that shouldn't have been that big a deal. I'm sure these guys are friends in real life. I'm sure it was discussed ahead of time. I don't think anybody went into business for themselves. But allegedly, at the request of a close business partner, Vince answers that call and releases Bryan Danielson. Now, the rumor and innuendo is that it was Mattel. And you may recall their toys often come with a little warning about a choking hazard. A lot of toys for little kids do that. And it's been long assumed that it was Mattel. I don't know that anybody ever really confirmed that it was Mattel who was upset and expressed that to Vince. But hey, man, Vince had to make a business call and service that sponsor. So a bright young upstart and Bryan Danielson is no moss. So I'm bringing this up to you because he winds up getting rehired before his 90-day non-compete and severance period even ends. I know Regal and others were really high on him. But while he's in limbo, before we knew he was going back, when we knew this is an incredibly talented guy who's gotten all the praise in the world and been named the Wrestler of the Year in Ring of Honor, now he's been here in WWE and maybe they threw the baby out with the bathwater, we got to snag him. Was there any discussion about bringing the American Dragon Bryan Danielson to TNA? Because you'd seen the success that you could enjoy with Samoa Joe. You knew how great he worked with AJ Styles. It felt like, hey, this is a no-brainer, but did it ever happen? Or did you guys internally Discuss Bryan Danielson.
Back to, I wasn't in the creative rooms with Hogan and all that, but we'll call it locker room talk. And by this time, and I've shared that, you know, when we got Joe, you know, we'll call it the Ring of Honor crew, if you will. Bryan wasn't, he I don't think he was interested, but wasn't on the radar. When this went down, I was like, dadgum, they let this guy go? Yeah, because I was, yeah, I guess you could say shocked that, wait, he choked a guy at ringside. So, like, how? I just didn't think that it didn't sound like, if the guy did go into business for himself, it wasn't that far out of bounds to warrant termination. But man, maybe their decision will be TNA's win. And like you said, oh, they hired him back. Oh, okay. So that was kind of a slap on the wrist.
Let's talk about the pay-per-view. It goes down Slammiversary 2010 on June 13th. It's the 8th anniversary of the promotion. It got better than usual TNA reviews, according to Dave Meltzer. Strong series of matches. The next pay-per-view, of course, is going to be Victory Road in July. Things are building for Bound for Glory in October. There's discussion at this point that it might be in Charlotte. And the idea in October is it might be Hogan versus Abyss and Flair versus Styles as the two main events. Jeff, that sounds like a really bad idea.
Not my ideas.
Were you hearing that? I mean, when you heard that, did you just chuckle and say, Lord, here we go?
Well, and you know what, when you say here, there was all kind of things that would kind of be, I didn't take any of it serious. And I wanted to make sure, and you can probably imagine this. And I was very careful to keep my name out of the traditional locker room gossip. And that's just, you know, that comes with the territory that the boys will be the boys. And no matter what's going on, there's going to be bitching. There's going to be complaining. There's going to be, I don't like this. I don't be like that. I completely steered completely clear of all that. And so I didn't have much of an opinion of nothing on this type stuff in my mind. I kept it to myself, but when we get into this event, you'll probably see where I'm going, that I just knew in my heart of hearts that Dixie would say, ooh, we're making some missteps here. We probably need to kind of rethink a few of the decisions being made. Boy, was I wrong. But this was not a very good outing at all.
I'm pretty fired up about this pay-per-view in particular, because it's an interesting time in the company. We got Kurt Angle starting the show with Kazarian. We've sang both of these guys' praises, two of the unsung heroes of TNA. The crowd's really hot, and I don't think they were this hot for the rest of the night. I mean, I think you could make the argument. I know that some guys in wrestling say this almost tongue in cheek, but look at the crowd here. Everybody's on their feet. I mean, everybody on the floor, in the stands, the lower risers, everybody's on their feet for this one because they know what these guys are capable of. This feels like a main event anywhere in the country. How much did Kurt enjoy mixing it up with these X Division guys instead of, you know, just working with some of the legends? And obviously there's lots of legends that are out there and big names, but this has to feel like a new challenge physically for Kurt Angle that he would thrive and strive in, right?
Yeah. And, you know, I don't know exactly. Probably a nice little poll to be done. What do we think Kurt's prime year was? But we're kind of in that sphere, if you will. Him and AJ had just unbelievable matches, him and Abyss. But, you know, having, and look, I mean, you could go down in history on hot openers, if you will. And I was taught, and Louisville Gardens was where I probably really learned the lesson through the years, that if you could open the show on a Tuesday night in Louisville with a hot match, you could almost guarantee the rest of the show to be good, and make sure you send them home with a hell of a main event. And everything gets in between can just kind of be, I don't say average, but it wasn't near as critical. You start wrong in Louisville, you can almost fall off the cliff, and you better make sure you wake them up the match before the main event to make sure the main event's rocking and rolling. But, you know, having a guy like Kurt pretty much in his prime start the show, worked for Kurt, damn sure worked for Kazarian in this. Two guys, super athletic, physical, knew they were going to tear the house down. I think it put too much expectations on the rest of the show. You know, a couple of years ago at Wembley when Punk and Joe started the show, I thought that was brilliant. I think those two kind of guys can, you know, Punk arguably the biggest star on the show, but I think in a lot of ways they went out, did their deal, and that show kept rolling. I just thought it was brilliant in a lot of ways. I think a guy like Kurt and his style, I think, because when you kind of get into the layer upon layer in a classic Kurt Angle match, I mean, when you get done watching a Kurt match, a lot of times you're like, Jesus, I'm exhausted, because he takes you on such a roller coaster ride. I was going along around the saying is, I'm not sure Kurt is the best person to start the show on a pay-per-view, because it sets the bar so high and the expectations in a lot of ways. You're just not, you can't expect the next 7 or 8 matches to live up to that. I think it's an ebb and flow, and it's a balance hard to do but man, Kurt's matches, we'll say, with like Lethal, Kazarian, I mean, obviously I referenced AJ. God, they were so damn good, because Kurt could be a base and he would do his own flying, but he would be a really good base and be able to take all the different bumps. But once you got into the latter part of the match, Kurt's storytelling made everything come together. The submissions, the false finishes, just Matt Classics, pal.
Let's talk about the next match. Another classic indeed. Doug Williams is going to retain the X title, beating Brian Kendrick. They go 9 minutes and 34 seconds. It gets 3.5 stars. Of course, we're big Spanky fans here on the program, and I think Doug Williams is one of the more criminally underrated talents. Timing being everything. In an alternate timeline, he's an even bigger star. But I did think Doug brought a different dimension to the X division from all the previous champions. And Brian Kendrick's probably a perfect opponent for him to showcase what he can do. A guy who spent time under the tutelage of William Regal and Robbie Brookside. He's familiar with this sort of style. What do you think of Doug Williams and Brian Kendrick, and just Doug as the X Division champion?
Very good. Very good. Again, different pacing, different style. Again, kind of to my point, Doug and Brian, their chemistry was good, and Brian being the X Division champion was a different pace. But man, hard to follow Kurt and Kazarian.
Let's talk about the next match. It's time for the ladies here. Madison Rayne is going to beat Roxy in 4 minutes and 14 seconds to keep the Knockouts title. Meltzer would say it was better than most women's matches in either promotion. Roxy's in tears when it's over, and they cut away to make the step mean as little as possible. So a lot of criticism here from the way it's shot. But the gist is, this is the former Nikki Roxx. She's being let go here. It's a situation that a lot of people were pretty negative about management in, with, I guess, the way it was handled. She arrived in Orlando and was told that the stipulations in her match have been changed to title versus career. And this is done with really no buildup. So she's told she's losing, and that's going to be it. She winds up getting busted open from the mic shot. You see her bleeding here if you're watching with us at myworldpod.com. What do you think here? What happened? What really happened, as best you can recall, with Roxy?
You know what? This is my best recollection was this was part of the regime change. Again, there was roster churn that's going to happen traditionally, but Hogan got the heat out of it. I don't think it was handled the best, but again, I'm not here because I just truly don't know, Conrad. I don't think I've ever known, not that I can't recall. I don't know exactly what the situation was on why they were letting her go.
Let's talk about Jesse Neal. He's going to be on the pay-per-view here, getting a win over Bubba Ray Dudley in 5 minutes and 53 seconds. Meltzer would say this was not a good segment, and this Well, he just said it really sucked, and it started the downturn of the show. Obviously, we know that him and Devon, Bubba and Devon, have a training school. We've mentioned Jesse Neal as being one of those talents. A lot of people are being critical of him and saying that he's really green and maybe is put in an unwinnable position like this. Shannon Moore is involved. I'm sure we'll probably cover this more in Slammiversary 2011 when we talk about that, but we really did a disservice to Jesse Neal here by putting him on TV before he was ready, didn't we?
And that he's not the first, won't be the last, but when you get an opportunity on TV and you're just not ready, it can, I don't say irreparable damage, but it can do damage. And look, ironically, his teacher, coach, mentor, Bubba, because Bubba is so good on the mic, really highlighted how green Jesse was. And the segment, at the end of the day, went way too long. I remember this. It was just way too long. I get it. They were trying to tell a story and everything went with it. Jesse, the fans were not, they were invested in Bub and Devon, and there were times in the Impact Zone, those guys, they really, heels or babyface, they would have that Impact Zone rocking. Jesse just wasn't ready for this, and the crowd was not invested in Jesse because he wasn't ready, no matter how much Bubba tried.
We got Matt Morgan and Hernandez out here next. They're going to go 5 minutes and 20 seconds. It's a DQ. Somewhere along the way, Matt Morgan loses his luggage. The airline loses it, rather. So he's working in street clothes. They're doing an angle where he's going to come out with a neck brace and claim he's got a note from his doctor saying he couldn't wrestle. They're going to still get the thing going, but the promo is going to get criticized. The match is going to get criticized. It gets half a star. Is this just, two bad segments in a row after you started with Kurt Angle? Maybe you're on to something. Instead of us building to that crescendo, we started hot and it's starting to peter off a little bit here, no?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I don't know what they were thinking in the creative room when they laid out just this stuff back to back to back. It was a really hard spot. Kurt, good action. Doug Williams match, good action. Madison and Roxy, they're just stylistically, this was a challenge, let alone the story.
Abyss is going to pin Desmond Wolfe, who we know as Nigel McGuinness, in 11 minutes and 45 seconds. Chelsea's back with Wolfe. They're going to do the match here where there's a box of weapons with a teddy bear wrapped in barbed wire.
Oh, God.
Which is kind of fun. Abyss is going to choke slam Desmond Wolfe onto a gimmick part of the platform. A few dozen people are going to chant holy shit, but for the most part, it probably doesn't get the reaction from the crowd they were expecting. There's a sunset flip power bomb on Abyss into the barbed wire board. His arms are all bloody from the landing. Some kendo stick shots by Wolfe. Abyss winds up taking a face first bump into broken glass, and he's bleeding from that. And Meltzer would say about 5 people were chanting, "This is awesome." And then Wolfe asked Chelsea for her purse. She gave it to him. He opened it up and something was missing. She pulled out her hidden brass knuckles, throws him to Abyss. He punches Wolfe and pins him with a black hole slam. It gets a dud rating. I don't know if this is the best use of Nigel McGuinness, but I do think it's interesting that Dave was so hard on this. Like, these are 2 talented wrestlers. Everybody knows how talented Abyss and Nigel McGuinness are. And I can't help but feel like if that match happened on a Wednesday night, it wouldn't have got a dud rating, Jeff.
No, well, and here's where, like, back all the way up, this was the anniversary in the, if there's one show out of the year that you kind of lean into brand specific, the TNA brand, and it wasn't the same brand. The 4-sided ring, the roster had changed pretty drastically over the last 6 months. Inserted a lot of new folks. And so I really think what you just said is a perfect kind of point. that, hardcore stuff may or may not be Desmond, but I think that's only a part of it. I think the placement following Matt Morgan and Hernandez, which followed this, like you could just kind of feel the show just headed in the right direction. At the end of the day, folks weren't buying what they were putting down. And at the end of the day, I go all the way back to the top of the brand and the decisions that were made in December, January, February, March of 2010. Now you're bearing some of this rotten fruit in June of those decisions.
Let's talk about a badass match that maybe was in a less than ideal place on the card. Jay Lethal is going to beat AJ Styles. The crowd did not expect that. The fans didn't expect it. The announcers are going to play it up like it's a big win. This is the era where Ric Flair is in AJ's corner. So Flair's selling big for AJ losing. Kazarian's going to come out. But it's a big win for Jay Lethal. They go 17 minutes and 9 seconds, but the crowd is not as invested in it as they could have been. I can't help but think that the placement of where they were on the card hurt. And still, even now, it feels weird seeing Ric Flair and AJ together because it feels like on not on some level, on every level, the pairing takes away from AJ. Instead of him being uniquely AJ, he feels like a carbon copy dime store Ric Flair. Like his career was never supposed to be. I don't know. The whole thing feels half-baked.
Unfortunately, for all parties involved, including Dixie and Hulk, it was just a misstep after misstep after misstep. And, when I look back, obviously Jay is my current partner. I love him like a brother, whatever, whether I'm the crazy uncle or whatever it may be. But when you look at the history of Jay, and what a run he had at ROH, but this is a time in Jay's career, timing's everything, that you go back and look at that Flair promo and how all that went down. And that was, I guess in a lot of ways, the early part of their friendship that has remained all these years. But you kind of think of the trajectory. Had AJ not been in that slot and Jay, and the story would have been Jay and Flair, and maybe there's somebody else, but not the phenomenal one, AJ Styles. It just felt like a huge miscast. That where would Jay's career have gone in that, whether it's Jay Lethal, Black Machismo, him doing the impersonation of Rick, just the charisma of Lethal and the trajectory he could have had, but unfortunately, as good of an in-ring worker and the match they had, but, is it the song or the singer that makes a number one hit? They had two great singers in this ring, but man, oh man, the song that they were singing was a complete dud. And it just, they executed but I think the reporting here, I don't know how kind they are, but there's no reason that Jay Lethal and AJ Styles should have anything less than a reaction from the crowd, good to great. And it just wasn't there. And you can't blame it on their in-ring work. Flair's a mega star. AJ, a star, certainly to the TNA audience, and Jay Lethal, upstart babyface, if you will, that had a ton of charisma and coming off a promo with Flair. Just all the recipe was there, but Conrad, as it said, it just fell flat.
We got to talk about the next match here because this is a fun tag match. I think it's one of the better matches on the show, and I didn't expect to feel that way until I watched it back. It's Jeff Hardy and Mr. Anderson and what feels like a thrown together tag team, beating Robert Roode and James Storm in about 14 minutes. And they did an interview prior to the match, Hardy and Anderson do, where they named their team the Extreme Enigmatic Assholes, which is hilarious because the crowd starts chanting, "Let's go assholes," which has got to be the most unique chant in TNA history. It gets 3 1/4 stars. Anderson gets busted open near the left eye. He's going to win cleanly with the mic check. Let's talk just a minute, though, because we know that James Storm is probably the greatest tag team wrestler in the history of TNA. But which tag team did you prefer him with? America's Most Wanted or Beer Money, and why?
You know, I've been asked this, and at different times, I've probably answered it a couple of different ways. But when I drill it right down to it, Conrad, I think the reality is I loved AMW as the babyface tag team. Although Beer Money was a good babyface team and sold a lot of merch and it clicked, as heels, Beer Money, because of their dynamic and look, you just they're the chemistry, and hats off to James. He was in two of the best teams in TNA history. So that says a lot about his psychology in tags that they clicked. So I have to say, if you're talking about a babyface tag team, AMW, I loved. They carried a lot of weight, and they were heels too. But as a babyface, the people absolutely loved those guys. And then as heels, Beer Money, really strong, knew timing, knew how to get themselves and their opponents over. So that's my answer. Depends on if you want heels or babyfaces.
Next up, we've got Rob Van Dam defending and retaining the TNA title. He beat Sting in 10 minutes and 51 seconds. I showed a clip before the match where Rob Van Dam is saying, even though he doesn't like Sting, Sting is the number one contender. And the match itself, as I mentioned, goes 10 minutes and 51 seconds. But they were about 4.5 minutes before these guys ever got in the ring. They were brawling around the floor and things like that. I mean, Sting was actually wrestling here in a workout shirt, which was one of the first times we would have seen him do something like this. For whatever reason, these guys just don't have great chemistry. You're going to come out and take the bat away from Sting, and you're going to hit Sting with it. Sting's going to miss a splash and get a kick to the jaw and a frog splash, and that's all she wrote. So Rob Van Dam's going to win. It gets a 1.5 stars. And I know that chemistry isn't something you can manufacture. It's either there or it's not. And for whatever reason, it feels like these guys didn't really click. But that brings around a bigger point. I know Rob Van Dam was a huge favorite, and I know he was a beloved fan favorite, mine as well. I'm a huge Rob Van Dam fan. But it doesn't feel like he really achieved the success that I expected him to have in TNA. It feels like he was a much bigger star in WWE. Do you think he made the impact in TNA you expected? And why don't you think the chemistry was here for him and Sting? Is it just styles?
You know, not long ago, Conrad, man, you were talking about Joe Silva.
Yep.
And would you say he's, historically speaking, the best matchmaker
in MMA? Yes.
In MMA, yeah. So I think the matchmaking, look, at this stage of both of those guys' careers, my gut would tell me, they both need to be baby faces, and they both need to have strong bump taking heels to get the optimal match quality. Now, I know you're selling a bunch of different things, and back to Eric's earlier interview, and getting awareness, and there's box office attraction, and there's all kinds of factors when you book matches. But as far as match quality, put those two guys in the ring, I think it's a complete no-brainer that you're going to go, you probably need to go about 10 minutes or so. You know, even when we did the Main Event Mafia, Sting was never fully, by design, never fully a heel. So I just not really being aware of who you're putting in the ring together, or maybe they were and went with it anyway. But, you know, it doesn't. And I think Rob, as a single, remove Sting from this equation. Back to kind of your thought was, he is such a unique talent in so many ways. And the people, his style and the frog splash and the kicks and his offense is fantastic. But to really dig deep and get it rolling, I think he has to have, or best case is, he needs to have the right kind of heel that the build to the match got to be a strong promo. Because RVD, the catchphrase and the spelling out of RVD and all that. But as far as getting into the meat and potatoes of a promo, that whole art is probably going to be best served coming from that strong heel. So I just think styles, pardon the pun, the clash of styles was the biggest thing missing here.
Let's take just a minute here and talk about ODB. It comes out here that she quit TNA on June 14th. It's written here. She made a lot of noises of late about being unhappy with what had happened to the women's division. She was not a favorite of management and hadn't been used well with the new regime, which valued television model looks above unique charisma, which was the same reason she was never signed by WWE, even though she was the most over woman in OVW when it was their developmental program. She'd been with the company here for a little over 2.5 years, and in recent weeks, she started talking about loving wrestling, but it being time to make a change and wanting to get back into acting. This is a legendary fumble by TNA, in my opinion. It feels really, really short-sighted because, respectfully, she didn't look like a bikini model. To not see incredible value in ODB. I mean, that crowd loved her, and she just lends herself to being, I don't know. It just feels like she could have been a social media sensation. She could have been a merch mover. Like, I don't know. ODB is such a great character, such a great look, such a great name. I thought she did a fabulous job with this, but I guess she didn't look like a Nitro girl. So what do you make of this?
Well, I think history today, as we sit here in 2025, proves that ODB was one of the most successful knockouts in history. Earlier in this show, we brought up the topic of putting models in the front row, and we know who wanted that decision. This is strictly a Dixie Carter, again, budget cutting time. I don't think because of the how'd you classify it? Bikini look.
Yeah.
And you know, a guy like myself or the character so far, it just was in so many different ways. And I don't want to just say just different because I didn't, but resonated. People could relate to her. They loved her and you know, the flask and the whiskey and just all the little things that Jess brought into to the persona and her career and her style of work. It just made her not just stand out because she was different, but stand out because she was a star. You know, I don't want to say, you know, draw the exact comparison, but, you know, you look at Jeff Hardy and he's not a body guy, big muscles. He's not the craziest promo guy. He's not this, he's not that. But what does he do? Well, at the end of the day, he resonates with his audience like none other. Jess did the same thing. ODB resonated with the audience uniquely, and there was money in that.
Well, I'll tell you what else you're going to love. The unique products that Mando offers. I'm excited to brag about this because this is a really cool product that Mando has created. If you've been struggling with the heat and humidity like I have, check out what Mando has just launched that takes sweat control to the next level. It's called Mando Deodorant Plus Sweat Control Solid Stick. It's double penetration. You can finally get the odor control you love with Mando, plus powerful sweat control. Don't wait. Grab yours now at shopmando.com and experience double penetration of Mando deodorant plus sweat control. You've heard us brag about it for a while. We've been big fans of Mando from day one, but what I love about the clinical strength sweat control is it's one swipe and you're good to go. Let me be clear. This is not your typical deodorant. This is clinical strength. It's at least twice as good at controlling sweat compared to standard deodorant. It controls both sweat and odor for 72 hours. So after just 12 hours, underarm sweat was reduced by 92%. This stuff really works. And deodorant has been re-engineered here by Mando to stop odor before it even starts. Let me explain. When you put this on your skin, it's going to change your pH. And the reason you start stinking is when your pH is off. This is going to stop odor before it ever has a chance to start. The deodorant in your bathroom right now is just a fragrance designed to mask your stink. This eliminates the stink before it ever has a chance to start because we're attacking that pH. Mando has got the science down pat, and unlike other deodorants that are loaded with chemicals, Mando only uses premium ingredients like gentle mandelic acid. That's the real trick. That's what's going to keep you both fresh and dry. Your other deodorants don't have that. By the way, 100% of study participants experienced all-day odor protection with the brand new Mando deodorant plus sweat control. Think of this as like double protection, double the protection you need. No more worrying about sweat stains or embarrassing pit rings, just all-day freshness and dryness. I predict this is going to become the go-to deodorant when it comes to sports. Certainly professional wrestling and MMA and all the others. Why would you not want to be as fresh as you could? What are you waiting for? Go check it out. Mando starter pack is perfect for new customers. If you're like me, you're going to want a solid stick deodorant. That's included. I want you to get the cream tube deodorant too. Run it on your schnitzel sack. Run it between your butt cheeks. You're going to smell good. You're going to smell better naked. And you get 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash and deodorant wipes. By the way, this all comes with free shipping. And as a special offer for our listeners, new customers can get 5 code. That's like 40% off your starter pack. Just use the code MyWorld at shopmando.com. That's SHOPMANDO.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Just got you covered with deodorant plus sweat control. Say goodbye to sweat stain. We know that it's a favorite in the Jarrett household. Even Coach Rosie here, Jeff, says, my taint has never been cleaner.
I just read Coach Rosie's, he's a player. He's a player this morning. But we need to get my man Cody on here, because he would say, hey, Connie, it's the triple P: pits, package, and places. Mando can't leave home without it. Pits, package, and places. That's what he says, Conrad. It's the best. You have taught him right. I'll just say that. He's a Mando.
I love it. Hey, let's talk a little bit about some news and notes as we put a button on today's episode.
Love it.
The big finish last Friday night on SmackDown was John Cena doing his own pipe bomb promo to CM Punk. Punk did that promo in Las Vegas on June 27th, 2011, while he was seated on the stage and John Cena was convalescing, having just gone through a table. Well, this past Friday on USA Network on SmackDown, Punk went through a Slim Jim table right in the middle of the ring, and then John Cena perched himself on the top rope and cut a quote-unquote pipe bomb promo back and talked about CM Punk. You're not against TKO, you're Mr. TKO, because they knocked your balls technically off your body. Your tweets are strong, your actions are weak. You'll step on the necks of the people who actually work hard if it gets you ahead. Hey, Claudio Castagnoli. Hey, Nick Nemeth. Hey, Matt Cardona. How you guys doing? That, of course, is a reference to an interview that CM Punk did for the media on the way to WrestleMania 29. He gave a shout out to those guys. That's Cesaro, Dolph Ziggler, and Zack Ryder. And then John Cena, knowing that there was some controversy online about things that Punk had said once upon a time about Saudi Arabia, he said something like, you change your values as much as I change my t-shirts. Tens of millions of views on social media and impressions. So clearly this feels like a home run. Did you have a chance to see the promo? What did you think of the execution of John Cena's pipe bomb, if you will?
So the Punk pipe bomb, quick question, because I learned a lot, but yes, I got a chance to see it after the fact, and the data and the numbers are kind of, Lord, Conrad, just mind-blowing. But did back on Punk's pipe bomb, did Cena stay down selling that long?
Yes, he did.
Okay. All right. That felt real long. And then did he say that on the way to WrestleMania back in 2011? Hey, Dolph. Hey, Zach. Or is
that was prior to WrestleMania in 2020 for 29, which would have been 13. So he said that in 2013. So that's not the same timeline. But what Punk did say in that pipe bomb on the 11th was something like, 6 days from now, I'm going to take the WWE title, because it was at the time, Cena was the champ. Everyone knew that Punk's contract was about to expire, and they were on their way to Money in the Bank in Chicago. And Punk was saying 6 days from now when I take that WWE title home. So John Cena did this, saying 6 months from now when I take that WWE title home. So they tried to draw as many parallels as they could. Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'll say that just the beauty of the business in that I'm sure, well, my gut tells me they got that original pipe bomb, printed it out, and the writer's room and collectively the whole group, whoever it may be, kind of said, all right, how can we weave the original out with the new updated one? And look, the proof's in the pudding. That's where I kind of look at that data and go, oh my God, did that resonate? Because Cena's been back however many months now and done quite a few segments and promos, and nothing's come close to this kind of numbers that I'm aware of, unless you tell me different. But that kind of goes to there's nothing original, and I say this respectfully. There's only stuff that's updated. And in a lot of ways, that's kind of the route they went in a very creative way. And they touched on some real life shreds of reality, which is always a must for great TV. And look, what a build it was. It got, by design, everybody talking. We're talking about it on this. So you can kind of go through each one, checks all the boxes. It's really interesting to see how our industry evolves, Conrad. As much as things change, as things stay the same.
Let's talk just a little bit about this weekend. Of course, you and I can't pretend to know exactly what's going to happen or what's going on. This is not a political podcast, but I feel like we have to at least discuss it. The world has changed a little bit since you and I recorded last. There were some Iran strikes on Iran from the United States government. And as we know, WWE this weekend has a big pay-per-view across a little body of water from Iran in Saudi Arabia. And there's a lot of discussion about whether or not Night of Champions should still happen in Saudi Arabia. There's no real best practice here, Jeff. What do you think happens, and what would you do if it were your call?
You know, Conrad, as I'll play the role of Conrad Thompson. Conrad, while we're recording, it's been reported the country of Qatar has intercepted successfully some missiles that Iran shot at U.S. air bases. So it doesn't appear things are cooling off. And like you just said, this is not a political podcast. It's there's no upside, because here's what I'm convinced of. What we don't know. As silly and as stupid as that sounds, I just think that when you look clearly at what's been reported, and again, take it all with a grain of salt, that they did the head fake, that they sent B-2 bombers to the east, but they did a head fake and sent several to the west. So by design to send mixed messages. Well, that isn't an isolated mixed message. I think we're going to continue to get mixed messages. So Conrad, I'm not dealing with the information that TKO has, certainly that the government has. I find it very, very hard to even come close to making a decision when I truly, I'd be making such an uneducated guess, and I don't like to make those because I think you have to kind of dial into.
Well, hang on, Jeff. I mean, we got to figure this out. I mean, I appreciate you're trying to be diplomatic, but
what's the Saudi government want?
Well,
the people.
What's the United States government want? But
yeah, right. I was going there next.
SmackDown is Friday in Saudi Arabia. And it's not like we're just going to jump on a plane on Friday and get there. Like, we're going to have decisions by the time this airs, people, maybe the decision's already been made.
Yeah.
But if they decide, okay, we can't go to Saudi Arabia, do they do this at the PC? Do they book another building real fast? Like, I think a lot of people, because I'm seeing a lot of people as we're recording this morning, people are saying, oh, they've got to relocate the show. And I'm like, hey guys, that's a nice idea. But do you think the trucks and the staging, do you think that shit is that shit's already in Saudi Arabia? Like, realistically, the wheels are already in motion for that stuff over there. So even if we could recreate it here, you'd have to book a building, book all the airfare, get all the talent, get all the trucks, blah, blah, blah.
Buddy,
as we're recording this on Monday, they're doing this on Friday. Like there's no easy answer here.
Where are they at tonight?
Columbus, Ohio.
Okay, so they're up in that area. Buddy said they were in Michigan on Friday. So I mean, look, it's just not as easy. But as far as the physical production, it's in the area now. Selling tickets and getting a venue rented in 2 days, 3 days notice, is it impossible? No. Can it be done? Difficult, but yeah. But I'm going to go to the two biggest unknowns, Conrad, are what is the Saudi government saying and what's the U.S. government saying. But a buddy of mine noted that, hey, Jeff, do you know where UFC was just this past weekend? I said, I certainly don't.
Yeah, over there.
One country away, correct, Conrad? I mean,
yes.
Yeah. So TKO ran an event. Obviously, they didn't know that everything was going down, but they just ran an event over there this weekend. So it's going to be interesting to see. But I think anybody who is trying to make an educated guess without knowing what the inner circle, and I say U.S. government, Saudi government, and TKO decision makers, they're the ones that are tasked with making that decision, probably, Conrad, yesterday.
It's going to be an interesting few days here. I want to be clear. Wrestling is not important. We hope that everyone is safe and no lives are lost, and we can damn reschedule the wrestling show. In the scheme of things, it's not that important. But I'm pulling for them. There's also, since we've been recording, it's been revealed, and of course by now, when everyone's listening to this, they know what really happened. But after promising that CM Punk said at Fanatics Fest that we were going to hear his response to John Cena, Ice Cube style, no Vaseline, which is a reference to one of the original diss records in hip hop way back when. He supposedly is not booked for Monday Night Raw tonight, which I think is a bit of a head scratcher. So we'll see what happens. We'll also see what happens with Canelo. He did a press conference recently and was asked about potentially appearing on WWE at some point. And he said something like, we're talking about it. Maybe you'll see me in WWE at some point. How big of a deal would that be if WWE were able to land a Canelo one-off?
Who's his boxing promoter? Because I think it's all going to decide it into then. And look, I would err on the side like a Logan Paul with his social media following. You can see extreme value. Canelo, we've seen Mayweather, and I don't think there's any, and we've seen Tyson, obviously. So from a boxer stepping into professional wrestling, he's got some really hard acts to follow.
Here's why I would bet it's going to happen, though.
Okay.
You asked his boxing promoter. His boxing promoter is Saudi Arabia's General Entertainment Authority.
Oh, well, how about that?
So if you're curious, will it be possible? Yeah, but if you were hoping it was going to happen in AAA or a Lucha show, maybe not. No. Probably going to be in Saudi Arabia. SmackDown is going back to 2 hours. That's going to start on 4th of July. That's probably a net positive for that program, don't you think?
Well, gosh, yeah. I mean, yes. For that program, depending on who you're talking about. I don't know who made the decision. If USA didn't want to pay for the third hour, I don't know. But it's hard to program a 3-hour show. If the money's there, that's originally why they did it. Kind of lacks quality, gets your town a little thin, but you got to have a deep roster, which they do. I don't know, but show quality, it will probably improve. Is Netflix going to go closer to 3 hours every week now?
No. It is not. As from what I understand, Netflix doesn't care how long the show is.
Okay.
I think they want a minimum of 2, but I don't think it matters. Hey, I want to ask you, we just passed what would have been the anniversary of TNA. I've never asked you this before. Do you do any sort of celebration at all for that? Like the anniversary of the very first show at TNA? Like does Karen make a steak for you or make a cake for you or anything like that? Like, do you celebrate the first anniversary of TNA at all?
You know what? I'm very appreciative. My texts and DMs and stuff like that. I get, boy, oh boy, a lot, which is cool. And I'm very appreciative. And it always takes me back to Huntsville. Lo and behold, Connie was in the house, but it does. It takes me back to those days and load-in days and just everything that went with the building of that. And obviously Toby and how good he was to me during that time, and him performing. And, you know, he always wanted to perform in a ring and do that suplex. And we got to do that. And just everything about all the fun stuff. You don't remember all the stress and the ring breaking. And when I think about the ring breaking, the resourcefulness of Ron and Don and Jim Wakefield and the guys that put all that together. And I just heard an audio clip of Mike and Don pre-show and how we were rejuggling the segments and all that kind of stuff. So no, Conrad, I can't say there's a steak dinner where I eat steak often, but no, none of that kind of stuff. But I'm very appreciative of the messages that I get, because some of them are really, I mean, they're emotional and sentimental. And some of the fans that, hey man, you change my love for wrestling. And then some talent will send me, little did I know that company would change my life. And I mean, it's very, very cool, Conrad. I'm grateful. Some of the most rewarding, challenging, crazy times of my life, the ups and downs, personal and professional. But the Queen does not fix me anything special on June 19th.
Well, let's fix up something special for you at SaveWithConrad.com. I don't know if you guys have heard, but U.S. household debt service payments as a percentage of disposable income was 11.28%. You see what that means is things are costing more than they used to. And if that's got you feeling a little stressed, man, we can help at SaveWithConrad.com. Just ask my main man, Justin. He's an auto sales manager there in Knoxville, Tennessee. He came to us. You see in the photo, he's sporting a CM Punk shirt. And he was looking to do some home remodeling and to pay off some debt. Well, check out these before and after photos of what they were able to do. I mean, this is a dramatic before and after. And so if there's something in your house you've always wanted to do, like you'd say, man, someday, hey, in one day, well, let me just tell you right now, you can do what Justin did. Turn your house into your dream home with no money out of pocket. Not only that, we can even help you knock out all your credit card debt and even take a summer vacation from house payments. How's this? No payments in July or in August. You're done until September 1st. When it was all said and done, not only did Justin get his house upgraded and get rid of his debt and skip his next two payments, he's saving over $1,000 a month. Now, I know what you're thinking. That sounds too good to be true. How can he have his house improved from where it was? How can he be out of all that credit card debt? How can he still be saving money? How is that possible? It's possible because he was overpaying on his credit cards. He didn't even realize by how much. We saved him a boatload of cash, and we can do it for you too at SaveWithConrad.com. Just let me and my team run the numbers for you for free, just like we did for Justin. That's all it takes. It all starts with a quick 10-minute phone call with us at 888-425-0105. Or, of course, just get yourself a quick quote. Even talk to a live person right now at SaveWithConrad.com. And I want to reiterate, no cost, no obligation. It costs nothing to look. The worst case scenario is we take a look and say, you know what, dude, you got a pretty good deal. But don't you want that peace of mind to know that you have the best deal for your family? Let my family hook you up right now at SaveWithConrad.com. And I want to mention, right now we've got a year 3 guarantee. You see, all the experts seem to agree that interest rates are going to improve in the next couple of years. But we don't want you to miss out on that. But don't think that you need to time your refinance based on when the rates are at their absolute lowest. Said differently, here's what you're saying. I'm okay with overpaying for debt I never planned for indefinitely and just hope that it gets better. Hope is not a strategy, and neither is complaining. Let's fix it, man. Let's take a look at where we are. Let's run the numbers and see if there's a mathematical way. I want to be clear. I'm not here to get you in debt. I'm here to get you out of debt. You don't need my help getting yourself in debt, and you already know that. But if you feel like I'm talking to you, it's because I am. I really want to help you. I recently had a conversation with one of our listeners, Jeff, where he said, hey, man, I should have done this years ago. And I asked very foolishly, well, why didn't you? And he said something that knocked my socks off. He said, Conrad, I feel like I know you. I listen to your podcast 5 days a week and have for years. I was embarrassed. I ran up credit card debt. dude, this is my job. I help people do this for a living. I want to help you do this right now. I sincerely want to be your mortgage advisor for life, which is why I say at SaveWithConrad.com, we don't say no. We say not yet, but here's how. We're going to get you a plan to get out of debt. We're going to get you a plan to buy your first house. We're going to get you a plan to retire on time. We're going to get you a plan to get rid of all that credit card debt. We're going to get you a plan to put in that pool, upgrade that kitchen, upgrade those bathrooms. Whatever you're looking for, we want to help at SaveWithConrad.com. Don't be ashamed. There's no reason to be ashamed. Even if you've had a bankruptcy a few years ago, even if you're behind right now, what you need is the information. You need a strategy on how to get there. I do this and I want to do it for you at SaveWithConrad.com. Go right now. Find out how much money you can save for free. And by the way, with this 3-year guarantee, you get the peace of mind of knowing you get the best deal for your family right now, and you're not wasting money later on a whole new set of closing costs. Go right now to SaveWithConrad.com, NMLS number 2129, equal housing lender, SaveWithConrad.com.
Right on.
Without further ado, Jeff, let's talk about him.
Uh-oh.
Vince McMahon was the subject on Stephanie's podcast, What's Your Story? She had Nick Khan on, where he talked about his process with Triple H. He says that they make mistakes in business every day, but they have one another. They can bounce ideas off of each other. But he basically said he had nothing but respect and admiration for Vince McMahon as a business person. And Stephanie was quick to quip something along the lines of, probably his biggest nemesis is himself. I wanted to ask you, what do you make of that? You know Vince McMahon better than most people listening to this. Do you think Vince was his own worst enemy?
I will say this with my experience, but also I'll say my observations. I think every human being walking today's biggest nemesis is themselves.
Yes, sir.
My personal experience, I couldn't get out of my own way. But it's human nature to want to control people, places, and things. It's when you're driven as an entrepreneur, you have a certain mentality and attitude. If I want it done right, I'm going to do it myself, and all the stuff that can contribute to being successful ultimately can be, we'll call it your Achilles heel or your downfall or whatever it may be. But I think Stephanie's comment to me was very diplomatic, but stating the obvious.
Let's follow up with the other news that was broken last week. And I think you and I had already heard this before through the rumor mill, but it was finally made public that Vince McMahon was interested in buying the controlling interest of bare knuckle fighting championships. This was revealed by Justin Barrasso. That name may be familiar. He was formerly with Sports Illustrated. Want to give him a plug here. He's doing his thing on his Substack now. I encourage you, just throw Justin Barrasso Undisputed Substack, and you'll find everything Justin's reporting these days, including this report last week that he broke, that David Feldman, BKFC's founder and president, confirmed that he had a meeting with Vince McMahon and that Vince is resolute about a return to promoting. Quote, he's a great guy. His whole team is great, but the timing wasn't right for us. He's Vince McMahon. If I were him, I'd want creative control too. He was awesome, very complimentary. He was very serious to do business. What do you make of this? Do you think we'll see Vince back in wrestling or some other form of combat sports, Jeff?
Oh, I'm not sure wrestling. I'm not even sure combat sports, but, when you know the history, his family is a line of promoters, and what do they promote? And that is, going way, way back. I mean, Harlem Globetrotters and promoting dances and events. And so music, festivals, fairs, who knows what you're going to see, because nowadays there are so many, I'll call it different options. In a lot of ways, there may be something out there. He certainly had a vision for professional wrestling and took it places with his vision in a lot of ways that, nobody really can even lay claim to say, oh yeah, that the business was naturally going to happen that way. No, he had a vision and lots of things. So who knows? He may have a combination, but when you kind of look at the combat sports world, the lanes that are there, it'd be interesting to see if he got into the boxing world. You got to go find the fighters. That's for sure. The MMA world, if you will, that's a big lane. Obviously, professional wrestling. There's two big organizations and lots of others. I don't know. My gut doesn't tell me. Here's what my gut tells me. We don't have a damn clue unless you're totally in his brain. Maybe not even his inner circle here shares some things, but he's going to promote. What that is, I think everybody's got a guess at it. That's about it. Just a good guess.
We can't wait to see what's going to happen next with Vince. I'm sure we'll all be talking about it. And I know this time next week, we'll be talking about what did or didn't happen with Night of the Champions. What we know for sure, though, is that AEW is running their very first stadium show, and we are just a couple of weeks away.
Countdown,
baby. AEW Casino Gauntlet match. We've got the Women's World title with Toni Storm and Mercedes Moné hooking it up. We've got a dream match finally happening here in the United States, and how fitting it's for AEW's first stadium show. Okada and Omega are unifying two belts. We're going to have a new unified champion as the Continental Champion. Okada comes in to face the international champion, Kenny Omega. I can't wait to see this. I hope that whoever wins is running around with three belts. It would be a cool visual. But what everybody's going to be talking about is Jon Moxley and Hangman Adam Page. It's going to be a barn burner. I'm sure everyone is glued into this. It's been one of the longest storylines in AEW history. Of course, the Death Riders and Jon Moxley. I mean, we haven't seen the actual physical world title in forever. I think a lot of our listeners are hoping that Hangman Adam Page rescues it from that case and holds it high over his head. We'll find out. Tickets are on sale now at AEWTIX.com. And if you didn't already know, Wednesday night in Garland is going to be Dynamite. Thursday night in Garland is going to be Collision. Friday is StarCast, and it is a who's who of all your favorite AEW superstars and a bunch of legends. And, of course, on Friday night, we got the Ring of Honor pay-per-view. But Saturday, we're back at it again with StarCast. Jeff's going to be there. The Queen's going to be there. I'm going to be there, and you need to be there too. Grab your bracelets at StarCast.com. That's StarCast.com. Plan to spend Saturday, July 12th with us, and then we'll all hike a couple of blocks over to the stadium show, Globe Life Field, all in, little afternoon matinee action. And somehow, some way that night, Jeff, Goldberg in Atlanta for the world title. This is going to be one of the biggest days in wrestling history, and I'm glad you and I are going to be knee-deep in it at StarCast.
Buddy, oh, buddy. Good old StarCast, putting a smile on that face. One thing that we didn't really touch on, I don't know, but Hangman's promo at Arena Mexico with his Spanish and everything. But the build, it felt like the all-in build went into super high gear this past Wednesday. So I'm excited about Seattle. And then we got Dynamite 300 out in Ontario and the outskirts of LA. And then the go-home week, like you just said, into Dallas. So big weeks coming up. Wrestling, man. It just, in the span of the next 21 days, lots going to go down. But Conrad, we say that often. With the cadence of the industry now, it's Jesus. It's mind-blowing, pal. It really is. When you take in the lucha stuff and the Japan stuff and throw in an independent show here and there, and then what you just laid out. Good time to be a wrestling fan.
Can't wait to talk about it. It's happening sooner rather than later. Check it out. We're going to be live here. Go hit the subscribe button. Turn on your notifications bell. It's myworldpod.com. And next week, not only will we be live, we'll be live taking your questions. When you get to ask Jeff anything, find us on social media. Ask Jeff anything you want. We'll cover a variety of topics, I'm sure. Bring the questions. Let's have some fun. Join us for a party. It's happening at myworldpod.com. Jeff, as always, I appreciate all the time. I had a blast talking about Slammiversary 2010. I enjoyed catching up on the latest and greatest with pro wrestling. And I'm looking forward to asking you anything next week right here.
Good. I'll be pumped, buddy. Thank you.
We'll see you next week right here on My World.
Peace.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson here to tell you a little more about what AdFreeShows.com is all about. Get early, ad-free access to more than a dozen of your favorite wrestling podcasts every single week, starting at just $9. That's less than 20 cents an episode each month. And yes, you can listen to them all directly through Apple Podcasts or your regular podcast apps. How easy is that? Ad-Free Shows also has thousands of hours worth of bonus content and docuseries like Title Chase, Eric Fires Back, Conversations with Conrad, and The Insiders. Plus new series like The Book with David Crockett, Monday Mailbags with Mike Chioda and Nick Patrick, and a whole lot more. And you want to talk about early? You can't get any earlier than listening to the shows live. You can be a part of the live studio audience as we record the podcast. Plus, ride shotgun alongside your favorite childhood heroes for live watch-alongs, Q&As, and other interactive experiences every single month. Come on now, see for yourself what thousands of other wrestling fans from around the world have discovered, that AdFreeShows.com is the best value in wrestling. Check it out today, and hey, when you do, the first week is completely free. AdFreeShows.com.